6. Will everyone please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Here.
Joseph Wetmore?
Here.
Ed Levine?
Here. I believe Andrew Benson is doing other ministry tonight. We wish her safe travels. Moving on. Everybody hear me? Moving on. The first thing in our packet is the Lansing Community Library Report by Liz Miller. It's available also in the back if people want to read it. Item number 5 will be a Lansing Youth Service Report from Janice Johnson. That also is in your packet. Item 6 is privilege of the floor. I would like to not discuss any of the public hearing information tonight as far as Consolidated Water District number 3 or number 5. Also like to have a limit of 20 minutes with a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Having said that, I have a list here which I'll read off, and the first one is Joanne Sipola-Dennis. Hello.
Hello. So good evening, everybody. This is my first time speaking in the town of Lansing.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm Joanne Sipola-Dennis, as Supervisor Levine said. I'm also with a Figure Lakes Pulse, which is a all-volunteer organization of gay, lesbian, transgender, queer individuals from around Tompkins County. We're getting together and asking our local officials to support us by recognizing Pride Month, which is in the month of June. June is significant for us because of all the Supreme Court rulings. You know that the defense of marriage was overruled and found unconstitutional a couple of years ago. And Don't Ask, Don't Tell was overruled, allowing gay lesbians to serve in the military openly. And I shared with Ed a few stories. I wanted to actually start by thanking you, Ed, for being such a kind and generous and willing man with your time. And it was you who called me, not once but twice, to get information about why this was so important and what you could do as a supervisor and a leader in the town of Lansing to join the other municipalities who have already done this. And we had some great conversations. One of those is I shared with you that I had spent 10 years being a partner to someone in the military during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And so these symbols of flags are very, very important to people who served. And at that time, if we had said we are gay, a gay couple, my partner of at that time 5 years and 12 years in the United States military as a chief, I would have been arrested, and she would have been put in the brig because that was the law of the United States, and she would have lost her career. And so a lot of those things, now that they're over with, they still have very long-lasting repercussions on us as human beings. And thank you for recognizing that. It does matter. And seeing the rainbow flag, a sign of acceptance, love, protection. We care about your experience here. We notice that you are citizens and that you do need a different kind of leadership and recognition than our heterosexual counterparts. And so the rainbow flag is often put at businesses where they do want our business because that is a symbol that you're safe here and we do want your business. And so that flag was actually originated by a gay man, an activist. His name was Gilbert Baker. He died last year. And the rainbow flag was made by him in response to the Stonewall riots, which was a 4-day standoff in New York City that is celebrated. Why it's June is Pride Month, is because that happened in June. And so that was a 4-day standoff where police were then under order to arrest any two people who were gay in public spaces. And so no gay bars were supposed to be open, and they wanted them closed. And so that was the start of the gay rights movement in America. And that flag symbolizes that entire movement. I know that you're going to read a resolution tonight, and I appreciate all the work that all of you have done to do this. Joe Wetmore was my first contact, and I always go to him, even as if he wasn't the town of Lansing's member, because he has shown me in many instances that he is a very strong local ally. I was having a conversation with Congressman Tom Reed at one of his town meetings, and he tried to dismiss all the things that he supports, which was Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He did not support marriage equality, and he tried to dismiss me when I said he was discriminating. And Joe Wetmore stood up and he said, "Stop dismissing her, answer her questions." And so I thank you for doing that. I know that you're going to read the resolution, and as I said, I appreciate all the work that you've done to make this happen in a very short period of time before the end of the month, Pride Month, happens. I know that you have many, many gay, lesbians, and transgender people who live in this town, and it is a great symbol to them who live here, but also people who come to visit. A few months ago, your community and our whole community lost a very important member, and his name was Jason Seymour. Mm-hmm. You know him. His husband is here.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, when you raise this flag, I would like you to do it in memory of Jason Seymour. I really wish that he was here to see this. It would have made a difference in his life. And so please do that in his memory. And I hope that the press brings it, because this is a very, very historic and important event for you as a leader and for each one of you as a town board member. The other boards have unanimously supported this, and I hope that follows through in a great town of Lansing. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next person is Lisa Rizika. Do you want to have something from conclusion of the floor? Your name's on here. If not, that's okay. No? Okay. Tim Farrow? You okay? All right. Then we have Deborah Siplo-Dennis. Hello?
Hello. So I guess you didn't hear from the folks from driving tonight.
It's okay.
I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things that Joanne said, which are that we really appreciate you guys working on this and taking a look at it. I just read through the policies that you're going to vote on tonight, and I think they're really comprehensive, and I think you've done a good job. And I hope that next year we can talk, and maybe in May, about doing a resolution or a proclamation to officially recognize June as Pride Month. That would be awesome. And so we'll continue to work together on that. But I just wanted to say how much I appreciate all the hard work. I know that I was on the town board in Dragon for a while, I'm not anymore, but I do realize that when people come to you with something, sometimes it sounds really easy to do, but when you get down into the nitty-gritty, it turns out to maybe not be as easy. So I do appreciate all the work that you put in on the policies. Thanks.
Good. Thank you.
Supervisor Levine, may we give you the flag?
Sure.
Wait, not yet.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a picture of your back.
You want to have the rows between, or the thorn between two rows?
Okay.
You like that?
Yeah.
You want to do it this way? You do it this way. Where you're comfortable with. Good.
I'll depend on yours. Thank you so much. Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, May. Good to see you again. Okay, next person signed up for privilege floor is Pat Pryor.
Thank you. I also, as a resident of the town of Lansing, would like, and a member of the local gay community, would like to express my support for the resolution which would establish a policy for the flying of various flags at various times of the year. And I won't reiterate all the reasons that have already been given. But as I thought about this when I was getting ready to come tonight, it occurred to me what a wonderful thing it will be for our town to, on a somewhat regular basis, not only for the LGBTQ community, but for other organizations as well, to see their flag flying over the town hall, beneath the American flag, of course. I think that we have a wonderful town here. I have many friends here. I feel like we've established roots here, and I intend to stay here as long as I'm able to. And one of the things that I would like to see, and I think that this is a step in that direction, is more of a celebration of the diversity that does exist to some degree in this town. A lot of people would say that we're not a diverse community. I would argue that. And I think this is a step in the right direction, and I think that it is the right thing to do. And I hope that you will support it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, moving on to, if there's anyone else that perhaps didn't sign up that wants to have privilege of the floor. Okay. It moves on to number 7, which is the public hearing, annual stormwater report. And I think we can open up that. If someone would like to make a motion.
I'll second it.
Aye. Now we have 2 representatives, I think, from T.G. Miller here. We have Dave Herrick and we have Donnie Harner. Do you, John, want to come up here and perhaps if there's questions or concerns or background, you can share that with us? And Lana, code officer, please join us.
Well, good evening. The town of Lansing is a small municipal storm sewer system, or as the acronym spells out, MS4 community. And it requires that, among other things, that about this time every year, an annual report has to be prepared and sent to DEC to identify those activities that the town has taken in the past year related to stormwater management, inspection of existing permanent facilities, good housekeeping practices amongst your own facilities, public outreach. There's a whole host of things which are called minimum control measures And in the annual report, you'll probably see the MCM reference throughout. And the town of Lansing is a member of a coalition here in the county. And the benefit of being in the coalition is there are several of these minimum control measures that are done as a region for the benefit of the members of that region. And they're identified as MCM1 and MCM2 out of the, I think there's 6 minimum control measures total in the report. And so the coalition, through Tompkins County Soil and Water staff, help prepare for the benefit of all of these members basic information that's applicable to all of us. And so public outreach, things like the floating classroom, advertisements in local articles or advertisements in local newspapers, periodicals, those kinds of things that are for the benefit of everybody relative to stormwater. So there are these minimum control measures that are done on behalf of a larger regional group that the town of Lansing receives benefit from. Then there are individual minimum control measures that are solely the responsibility of the town. And those are things that we often get involved with either through Lynn as the stormwater management officer or the highway department when it comes to inspecting the existing permanent practices that exist throughout the town's districts, stormwater districts, or at specific commercial sites where stormwater facilities like detention practices or bioretention filters have been installed. So we participate in looking at those, writing up reports, which are part of the annual process that's described and shared with DEC. So that's kind of the overall summary of the process and what goes into the annual report. And if we have questions or if there's concerns about the information in the report, the town has the ability to document any questions or comments that come in after the 1st of June and address them in the following year's annual report. So if there are board or public comments that want to be written down, recorded, and maintained, then we can address them and they can be included in the 2018 report, which will be submitted early next year.
If there are, for instance, typos, if there are, for instance, omissions, misspellings, are those things that can be corrected with the acknowledgement these are and move forward this year?
Yeah, I think you could certainly document whatever those might be and put together an errata for next year that says these things were discovered in the report submitted for the 2017 year, and then just have it noted.
So if possible, we could move this thing forward this year with such discussed changes or corrections. I mean, if they're minor, is that possible?
I believe so. Yeah, I don't see why it's a process of sharing information, and if the public has input that wants to be recorded, and if it changes some of the language or the numbers or something in the annual report, that's fine.
The other question I have is that one of the questions that was brought up is that my signature is on these. That is part of the procedure to move forward until other reviews. Is that correct? In other words, this stormwater comes to my desk, we look it over, we send it on to be reviewed some more, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the deadline for submitting the annual report is June 1. Okay, and then there's the coalition, it's my understanding that the coalition does have through it, is it the Water Resources Council? Is that the? Yeah, they, again, for the benefit of the larger coalition members, there's an announcement about the annual reporting process, and I think it's done through the Water Resources Council. So that was done all prior to June 1st, and you did need to have a signature on the annual report before it was turned in. So it might behoove the town to think about having your annual report occur at your regular meeting in May, so that you could have everything done by the June 1st deadline.
That's something to consider for next year, absolutely.
Yeah, you can set it up for next year, right?
And since you'll be in charge of that, we'll be looking forward to that email reminder as quick as possible.
Okay. And just, it's a collaborative process here.
I understand.
Of working, Lynn is the stormwater management officer, is kind of the default go-to guy for the town.
In all fairness, it's a team effort, there's many parts.
Yes.
And you try to get these parts forward as best you can, because there's other parts that have to be looked at from other municipalities, so it's not just one thing. Having said that, like I said, this is something we can tweak and move forward as we constantly try to make things better. So thank you. Are there any other questions from any of the board members?
Yeah, so the town of Lansing fills out all the ones that say MS4 town of Lansing, and the coalition fills out the other pages. Basically, the county fills out the other pages in this report. And what kind of back and forth is there between the town and pages that are labeled name of coalition, those pages? How does that work?
Do you want to adjust the process at all?
Yeah, so the Stormwater Coalition works through MCM 1 and 2, and that's directly coordinated with us and Lynn, and that's a process that they do on behalf of multiple different municipalities. And that's throughout the year too. There's a monthly meeting that I attend on behalf of the town, that the different events that come up, if there's advertising that's they would like to vote on, that's something the town can engage in to advertise for the minimum control measure requirements.
And this is all about trying to maintain the stormwater runoff quality into the lake. That's what we're really talking about, is what the quality of the water running out of our town into the lake is about.
That's one of the goals.
So can you tell me what the goals are then, please?
We could probably go through them, but a lot of illicit discharge, so we're trying to find if there's a hot spot, different stormwater practices that may not be working, try to retrofit those or improve them so they help improve the water. Eroding ditches, septics that are failing. If that's a direct source to a ditch or to the lake. Mapping exercises, understanding what systems are in the municipality so they can inspect them, make sure they're operating properly. There's street sweeping if required, cleaning catch basins, so forth.
I'm kind of curious, there's one point in which agriculture was one of the things, agricultural runoff was one of the things to be looked at, and it's not checked off in this, and I'm wondering why that's not part of the stormwater management.
Where's that, Joe? Specific.
Sent an email earlier today. MCM 1, page 1 of 4.
Okay, right.
At the bottom, agriculture is one of the targeted audiences. We're an agricultural town. I'm not understanding why that's not one of the audiences.
So this is,
I know
it may
it's
not
coalition
necessarily be checked on this, meaning it wasn't a target audience that the whole coalition has focused their advertising on. Not to say that it hasn't gone now to, agricultural community, if it's posted on TCAT buses, any other publications. So
Well, I know
that's
it's
something
talked
think
about
we
in our
can-
agricultural committee, and it just feels like, that whole thing is an important part of our community, and I don't see it reflected in this report at all. And I'm wondering how we can get that reflected in the report that, our agricultural community is concerned about it, is talking about it, and get it into this report.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to reach out as a coalition and talk to everybody involved and see if there's.
So how do I make that happen?
It's a stormwater coalition meeting that goes on monthly, and that's something that's open, you can attend. You can also pass an email through the chain of command and request some of that.
I think one of the things we can do also is we can tailor this to our own area. In other words, I know, for instance, with CAFOs, there's certain things that are regulated there, you know, with manure spreading, runoffs, things of that nature, which for all of us, including myself, are a concern. So part of this is the big picture, but I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think part of this also can be tweaked to our concerns. And our concerns are, okay, what's in Salmon Creek? Is it appropriate? Is it inappropriate? If it isn't appropriate, it should be mitigated. And I think that should be, at least perhaps from this board, if we can get a consensus, something that we should put in there for us next year to address the fact, is there runoff concerns? Because not only is it stormwater, but it's water quality. And we do it obviously with our storm ponds, we do it with other things, what's changed. And like I said before, things are regulated, okay, obviously with the CAFOs and that type of thing. But that doesn't mean that we still can't do our part to say, okay, what's in Salmon Creek? Is it above the average? Isn't it above the average? Is it, which time of year are we talking here? Type of thing. And I don't think that's too much to ask, because you've always been reasonable to say, perhaps we can take a closer look at those situations next year. And perhaps we as a town can monitor those a little bit closer. And if there's something that needs to be mitigated, we'll move forward and mitigate it.
And just to put the ag audience in perspective, under this minimum control measure number 1 is related to public education and outreach, and agriculture needing to be an audience is so. I know just through the seminar we had earlier this year, the Cuba Lake Watershed Network and the whole issue about HABs is front and center. So I wouldn't be surprised if the coalition in and of itself may find that there needs to be an agricultural target audience.
Well, as you know, Lansing does what I mean first in some regards, and everything that's concerned, in my opinion, is open on the table. And one of the things is that in many cases this is perfect timing, because when the farmers come back from working, so many long hours, when their season is so quote unquote lesser in September, October, we can have that discussion then and say, look, we are concerned about this. We are going to find ways to perhaps measure this, and we want your input. Okay? We're your advocate, not your adversary. It's very similar like people do audits. People get defensive because they think they're trying to be caught on something. No, it's just the contrary. You do an audit to defend the people that are doing good practices. The same situation here. How can we address this, and how can we continue to have that conversation with the agricultural community to see how we can perhaps get a better sense of what's going in? Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's not. Let's just go find out.
And if we work as a team, then perhaps we can avail ourselves of some of this new state money that's coming forward.
Absolutely. This is all good conversation.
Okay.
One other question I have is, I know there's a lead issue coming off the Rod and Gun Club. Is that addressed in this at all? Because we know that there's lead going into the creek right now. That's a problem. And the storm water washes it off of their property into the creek, even worse. How is that addressed in this report?
I don't believe the report gets into that kind of detail for a specific site. I don't know if there's other DEC involvement at that site, if they have other permits associated with it. But
Well, once again, we can use a parallel thought here, like we do with the CAFOs. The fact is that there have been some testing, my understanding, above and below the shot zone. But it doesn't mean that we can't move this to a different level, which is, okay, let's test the water and see if there's anything there. My understanding is that to leave a lying lead alone, in other words, don't disturb it. But in another case, if something's happening there, I think we, as public servants, at least can address the public's concern about this to say, is this moving in a different direction. If it is, let's catch it early if we can. So maybe we put that in also, that testing also. But have a conversation in the fall about this, another serious conversation, to say, what do you want to have tested and what extent do you want to have this done?
Okay. So these are all good, specific issues. What we can do is find out through the coalition how the specificity of those things can be blended into your reporting. They may be more of a local issue than a regionalized report, annual report, but we'll find out. There may be in some of the other minimum control measures that are the purview solely of the town to plug in that kind of info.
If it is, quote unquote, a local issue, a town issue, can we put an addendum into this stormwater report to address that?
Part of the permit now has a municipal specific SWAMP, they call it, stormwater management plan. And that's an adopted plan that's put forth kind of outlining some measurable goals that the municipality wants to try for every year. So that plan could be modified to incorporate some of these items. And this MS4 permit is actually in works of being updated for next year. It's supposed to have been implemented this year, but DEC is held off and grandfather this one in for another year. So there's going to be more heightened requirements coming up next year that we don't know what they are yet.
So you would check that when it comes available. Hopefully you would, I'm asking you to check that when it comes available.
Yes.
Asking you to compare it to the concerns that have been addressed by this board tonight. And if there's enough overlap, move forward. If not, then we can tweak it and address our local concerns here.
Great.
Does that sound reasonable to everybody? We have a consensus about that? So I look forward to the positive results that will happen from this interaction. Anything else we need to discuss tonight about the MS4?
You know, most of the typos I found were corrected in the version that you guys sent me later this afternoon.
Well, thank you, because there's two versions going around here, and this is why, okay, where are our parameters here? Is this something where you do reset, or is this something that, okay, that was because, you know, let's face it, there's typos and everything, and I'm not throwing stones at anybody, but thank you for catching them. And I think once we get a comfort zone, perhaps we can move this forward.
Okay.
And are we there? Okay. Anybody else have any questions pertaining to this? Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. Thank you.
If that's the case, would someone like to close the public hearing?
Well, the public hearing, should we invite the public to say anything if they have questions?
I think that would be appropriate. I don't mean to push this forward, but yes, you're absolutely right. Does anybody else want to make a comment on the annual stormwater report? Was I the first mouse? Sorry, I should have been the second mouse. Okay, if there's no one that wants to share any other information, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Sure.
Mrs. Munson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then we had agenda number 8, which is the resolution approving 2018 annual stormwater report. Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Mrs. Munson?
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Doug Day.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Item number 9. This is the motion to open the public hearing approving proposed public interest order establishing a consolidated water district extension number 5, Peruville Road. Gentlemen, you'll come back up because we may have some more questions on the next two. Someone like to make a motion to open?
Sure.
I'll second that. Mrs. Munson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I do have one person that has a comment here, and Mr. Joe Williams. I can listen to you now, or we can wait. It's entirely up to you, sir. I want you to move over to, I'm sorry. Mr. Williams, you want to make a comment, or are we okay?
I don't comment, I'm just telling you that I'm here.
Thank you for coming. Okay. Okay. So, Does the board have any questions, or anyone in the audience have any questions for consolidated water district number 5? You want to give a brief description? Okay.
As you can tell from the engineer's report, the extension that is being considered tonight is to benefit, I believe, 12 single-family residences on Rouville Road between Armstrong Road and North Kirkhammer Road. And this is a neighborhood that's long been searching for access to water, and I guess the time has come here where the approach to constructing it using, again, town highway forces to help keep costs down has brought this project to a reasonable annual charge. It still is above the threshold that is set by the New York State Controller for automatic review. So this will be going, subject to your adoption, will be going to the Comptroller for review and approval. But this is the opportunity to take advantage of the cost savings potential that can be brought to the project by the town and deliver water to these folks.
Have any of these folks objected to this project?
Pardon me?
Have any of the 12 households objected to this project?
When the initial feasibility study was completed and the cost information shared with the residents, I believe all of them had supported the petition and signed the petition in favor of pursuing this map plan and report.
I have not heard of one objection. There's still time. I have not heard one. That's one of the reasons we have these public hearings. I have not heard one objection about this. And to give you some history, way back when on Franklin Drive in Maple, I think you were involved with that, and went up to Armstrong. And the reason I say that because I'm the one who passed all the packages. I didn't have a yes or no. My neighbors needed it, and as a good neighbor, okay, it's a very bad in that area. So it goes across Armstrong, comes down to Armstrong, goes to Prouville, but there's pushback there, so they stopped. So they went the other direction, because they said, geez, why don't we keep connecting? Because engineers like to close loops on that. That's my understanding. And so went down Asbury and then hooked up to Triphammer. But at that time, and I don't know, was that in the 80s? I don't recall when that one was formed. But at the time, they stopped it there because there was opposition to connect that last part, so there was a gap. Well, now there's a couple of people that opposed it that actually agreed with it now. So that's why my understanding is there's no opposition whatsoever.
Okay.
So having said that, this annual water of 226 that you have calculated here, was that based on a 10,000 minimum or a 5?
I've continued to use a 10,000 gallon per quarter consumption assumption. Okay? Even though this year the rate structure changed so that the minimum bill was based on 5,000, I still feel that a reasonable estimate of water consumption for the 2.37 per person household in Lansing is 10,000 gallons a quarter. Now, there are probably a lot of folks who would say we don't come close. Personally, my family goes over, and we don't waste water, but we go over. So I think 10,000 gallons is a reasonable estimate. If you went with 5,000 as being the minimum quarterly amount for a single-family home, you take that 226 and cut it in half. So, but I think that a reasonable assumption of 226 based on 10,000 per quarter is fair and conservative.
Excellent. Any other questions by anyone, whether it be the board or any residents? So my understanding is, if there's no other questions or comments, that we will close the public hearing, and then we'll do the secret. Miracles do happen, don't they?
Every day.
So in that case, would someone like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that one.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Munson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So Guy, is it secret time?
It could be. As you saw, this is a small district. It's only 12 properties. It's like 25 or 26 acres. In terms of the impacts that it has, it didn't trigger anything on the type 1 list, so it's an unlisted action. You've seen the part 1. Part 2 is going to have 11 questions, and going through them briefly. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? The answer to that was no, or a small impact. Connecting through to that 4 corners from other areas and creating a closed loop in that area has actually been part of the plan for a long time, but I'll try to speed this up because we have a longer one to do later. Will it result in a change of intensity or use of land? No, all the houses are already exist. There is one empty lot that will be served, but it'll be very small impact. Will it impair the character or quality of the existing community? No, it's a water line. Will it have an impact on a CEA? No, there's not one in the town. Will it have an adverse change on traffic or transit or biking? And it would be a small impact, temporary construction impacts. Will it impact public or private water supplies or private wastewater treatment facilities? Again, no and no. There will be some water used, but you're simply going to take it out of the lake instead of the aquifer. There's tons of capacity for it, so it's a very small impact. Will it fail to use energy, fail to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation and renewable energy opportunity? Again, not really applicable. Will it impair historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? That would be a small impact. There have been a number of archaeological digs in the area to make sure nothing was being disturbed, and there were 2 major test plots done on a 50 by 50 grid right in that area, and nothing ever showed up. The closest actually mapped area turns out to be down north towards Farrell Road. Will it result in adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? No, small impact, mostly just construction impacts. Will it result in an increase for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. In fact, I think if they're out there putting in water lines, they'll probably clean up the ditches too, so there'll be a benefit. Will it create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Getting rid of wells and helping protect the aquifers, I would think, is an overall positive. The finding statement is that no significant or moderate impacts are expected from a small district extension to connect existing Peruville Road mains to nearby commercial areas and mains. The only mapping impacts show potential impacts to archaeosensitive areas, but all recent testing, together with the fact that the disturbance here is minor and adjacent to long disturbed area of New York State highways, the conclusion is no impacts are likely to occur. As to ag districts, there is a piece of this that's in the ag district, but the impact for the amount of construction that you do in a pipe was so small it didn't even trigger the 305 notice. And there's been no agricultural uses of any of the 12 parcels involved in this district. Based on all of that and the guidelines of seeker, a negative declaration is recommended. If you come to that same conclusion, it is contained within this resolution. And if you find some impact was improperly measured, we need to adjust it, study it, see if it changes to a positive impact, and go from there.
Any questions from the board for our attorney?
Yeah, part 1, question 2, does the proposed action require permit approval or funding from any other agency? It's got to get approval from the comptroller's office. Should that be listed?
We have to make sure I have to find the right one. Yeah, it probably should, off the top of my head. Yeah, is there?
No, you passed it.
Number 2,
Number 2.
it says yes.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
says
but-
DOT Highway, DOH, Bolton Point. Yeah, comptroller's office probably should be listed. It wouldn't be an environmental issue, but you're right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's implied, but it's probably important that it's in writing.
It never hurts to.
It's,
No, but
It's
you're
a-
absolutely right, because when we have these discussions as far as comptroller's threshold, but actually put it in there, I think that way it's addressed completely. Not that
Yeah, I
it
always-
was before, but simply to put it in there, that's not, I don't think, inappropriate.
no, I think it should have been there and I missed it. When I think of seeker, I think of land disturbance
So
and
do I.
permitting, and seeker isn't really built for local laws and stuff like this, but
Well, state environmental, I understand.
you put it in number 3 at the same time if it's not there.
That would be appropriate. Any other more questions or comments for our attorney? We're all comfortable. I'd like to entertain a motion to move forward and support the resolution accepting the secret and pushing forward, approving the public order interest and formation of establishment of such consolidated water district extension number 5, subject to permissive referendum and approval of the New York State Comptroller. So that's already in there also. But this is a good point to say permissive referendum. Now we have 30 days. If people are not happy with this, they're bashful not to come here, but there is a group outside. They are allowed to have a permissive referendum. They are allowed to push back on this, put a petition together, and if it meets all the rules and regulations and the percent, then there will be an election. That's been already done on the Algerine and Lansing Station Road Water District, so this is nothing new if this was to happen. That could have been done on the Drake Road, number 4. All those things are available because it's up, and the people that would vote would be the people that this would affect in that district. So this is part of the process to say, geez, we don't like this. We want to say, no, you have that opportunity if you're in that district and want to move forth. So having said that, I think we covered all the if, ands, or whereas. I'm starting to sound like you. Okay. Therefore, would someone like to put forth a motion to accept this? Okay. Second?
I'll second it.
Mrs. Munson?
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Doug Tate?
Yes.
Joseph Putmore?
Yes.
Ed Levine?
Yes. We're up to agenda item number 11. Motion to open the public hearing on approving proposed public interest order and establishment of consolidated water district extension number 3, which is the Bauer, Buck, Collin, Wilson Road. Would someone like to make a motion to open?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Munson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We have a list here of people. Once again, please limit it to 3 minutes. First one is Doug Emmert.
I'm Doug Emmert from 95 Conlin Road. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the board for the opportunity to get water to my house. I've been waiting 31 years for water. I've lived here all my life. My parents got their water back in the 70s on Asbury Road for free. Nothing nowadays is free. So the only opportunity I get for water is I have to pay for it. The other meetings I've been to, there's been a lot of negative pushback on the water from people that don't want it. I think everybody wants it, they just don't want to pay for it. The only way we're going to get it is to pay for it. There's a lot of people that need the water. I need the water. The girls' school up behind me drilled 3 wells down 500 feet and had salt and brought salt down the water table. I don't have an opportunity to drill a well and try to get around that, so I can't drink my water. These people that push back and say they're getting nothing out of it, that the town is forcing them to take something they don't want. If they were in my situation and needed water, they would be asking for it. So I truly believe that the town board is giving us what the majority of people are asking for, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you for the opportunity to get water, and we'll let democracy vote on to it to see if we get it or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person I have down is Mr. Andrew Morehouse.
I'm not sure I got my name on that, but I didn't wish to speak.
It's okay. You have the opportunity not to also. It's all right. Next one is Jennifer Buda. Hi.
Hi, I am Jennifer Buda. I'm over on Buck Road. We do have, I would say, minor water issues, definitely not as severe as some of our neighbors. It does take planning on our part. It takes coordination. I can't say run the dishwasher and the washing machine at the same time. We have a very slow recovery. So we are in favor of adding water, for sure. When you came to our house, I was right on board from the start. I was willing to sign up right then and there, if possible. We've spoken with a few companies about getting our well dug deeper to see if that could resolve some issues, and a few companies that we've spoken to have suggested not digging deeper because they do know other people in the area have hit sulfur, or digging deeper doesn't necessarily mean you reach water, or what have you. They've recommended not doing that, especially since our issues are minor. But another reason that we would like the water is we foresee the issues getting worse in our situation as our family ages. Right now it's not a problem with 2 young kids who, take a bath once a week. But when they start showering every day or what have you, obviously our water usage will increase. And it's also very dependent for us on the weather, of course for everyone. So we're kind of expecting some issues with this dry spell that we're having right now. So I just wanted to say we are in favor. We do look forward to the vote. And we feel that we're part of this community, and our neighbors are in trouble. We have neighbors that have talked about trucking water into their homes and the expense that that's going to cost them. And we have neighbors that haven't been able to shower for days or what have you because they are out of water. And as a community, we want to support our neighbors. So while our issues are very minor compared to theirs, we want to work together and build our community to be stronger, and we think water is the answer. Thank you.
Next person is Bill Miller. Hi, Bill.
How are you tonight, Ed? First a comment and then just a question. Again, I'm in favor of the water district, but my comment relates to the advertisement of this public hearing. I understand from Guy it is published in the Ithaca Journal, but that's not read by a whole lot of people for the quality of that. So I rely on going to the town website, looking at the meeting agendas. And the agenda for this meeting was not on last week. It only appeared Monday at my computer, and I looked every day. So again, I don't know how many people here read the journal, but I would wonder whether you're getting a fair representation of the people involved because of the short notice of this public hearing. That being said, my question basically is, the Water District 3 abuts the town land across the street where the construction potentially is going of all those buildings. Will the water for those buildings come off Extension 3, or is that coming off through another water district? And if it comes off Extension number 3, will that reduce or would that add the EAUs or whatever you call those things? Is that per building, per apartment, per townhouse? Again, just to reduce the rate, the expense of it. I'd like to know that information, but I'm still in favor of the...
Here, let me attempt to answer this, and if I deviate from the truth, or first of all, I ask you before I do that. My understanding is it is not in the Consolidated Water District number 3. My understanding that if you have, for instance, a duplex, it's 2 EUs. If you have 4 units, it's 4 EUs. So that's what they would be paying. So far, so good?
clearly not in
Right.
the town lands or
Right.
part of the larger
Right.
CWD already and are not affecting this proposed number 3.
So let me move forward. 5 years from now, people start building more because now, as you know, density is not an issue between the 150 feet. It's now 100 feet between your septic and your source of water, and the density starts to climb. One of the reasons that this number is lower than it was pushed a few years ago was because there's more density now. And as you know, a few years ago, when I was pushed around, what was it, $1,500, whatever, and the comptroller, I don't think would even looked at it. So having said that, as the density perhaps increases, we'll say hypothetically, the more people that jump on, the lower the cost is. That's how, because that bond will be paid off faster.
I understood on individual houses, I wasn't sure on apartment building,
but
multifamily units.
Yeah, let me go the opposite way. Vacant land is a quarter EDU. Okay, so you have, for instance, Mr. Sill in here. He has, I think he has 2 EDUs because he has 2 buildings. I think he's also paying for his land also, no matter what the size. So having said all that, yes, you're absolutely right. You get this over here, how much would they be paying for? They would be paying for a lot more, but they're already in a different district. And what we did with them is we actually extended that. Okay.
Very good, thank you.
And I do thank you for this because I was not aware of the documentation.
Thank you.
Teresa Morehouse?
No, I couldn't read the right clipboard.
Okay. Does anybody else want to comment on it since we have the public hearing open? Yes, please.
I'm Denise Robinson. I've been on Common Road for probably the past 27 years. And I just want to reiterate how important it is for my family to get water. We have a large family, and we have gone many times running out of water and having to truck our water in. And I, again, thank you, board, for considering this. It's very crucial to our well-being in my own home. And I know for many of our neighbors, it's a big issue as well. So I know a lot of people are against it because of the cost, but for us, it's just detrimental. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to have a comment? Yes.
Matt Sullivan, dual work on the road, 36 years, water issues for 36 years. Just to kind of speak to the cost of this, water's not free now for any of us, even if we don't have town water. You know, we have the expensive pumps and fixtures and plumbing. Plumbers call when they're pulling a well, pull a pump, and in the middle of winter or something, very unpleasant experience. So we just hope that I'm in favor. But as this is trying to be pushed forward, I'd like for the folks that would possibly be opposed to be aware of, or trying to take that into consideration, what it is costing them today. It isn't free, and so this looks like a lot of money, and certainly paying for many years, it is a lot of money, but it isn't all as bad as it seems by this number. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to make a comment? Can I entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I will put forth that.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Munson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll go to agenda number 12. Guy? Seeker?
Yeah. Okay, this is a much larger district, and because of mainly, I mean, you're still talking about putting pipes along roadsides, but mainly because you have enough disturbance to trigger the environmental issues on the ag district. It's a type 1 action, so it's a longer review, and it asks for, will the proposed action involve construction or physical alteration of the land or surface of the proposed site? You have a general answer of yes, and then you subrate up to 10 other categories, ranging from it can involve construction on land where the water table is less than 3 feet down, or it might result in an increase in erosion, exposed bedrock, move more than 1,000 tons of materials, etc. The conclusion as to those, they were all checked as minor impacts because impacts on land are anticipated as minor as the project disturbance is temporary, Land and vegetation will be restored, and the construction is or immediately adjacent to public highways constituting lands previously disturbed. The second question is impact on geological features. There is no impact on geological features, but just to make sure we have a complete record, it does note distance from Ludloville Woods, UNA, which is a county-designated unique natural area, but it won't have any impact on that or any other state or federally regulated area. Impacts on surface waters, again, a no. There is a water main that will cross over Bower Creek, which is a Class C perennial stream, but there's no planned construction in the creek bed or any riparian areas, and temporary controls will prevent sediment from entering the creek, so it doesn't trigger any of the about 13 standards on that one. Groundwater impacts, no, to the extent that this is asking for negative impacts. We're actually benefiting groundwater by not drawing it down. Impact on flooding, no, it's not that type of construction project. Impact on air, basically no, but we do note that construction vehicles, the potentiality of a temporarily running project generator only create temporary and intermittent impacts, and we're not talking about the tons per year of air contaminants that this particular standard is trying to measure. Impact on plants and animals, no, we're not actually going to be doing anything in any wildlife corridors. It's all roadside. Impact on agricultural resources, again, we did 2 notices of intent through the Agriculture and Markets Department. They reviewed this twice based upon lateral restrictions and how the district was drawn relative to land that is both in the Ag District and in active agricultural use. New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets twice responded and said that there were no unfavorable impacts on agriculture locally or for the state. But because of the amount of disturbance in the roadside, we did take a look at it. The questions that they ask is whether we're affecting soil groups 1 through 4 in the land classification system. The answer is we are, but it's a small impact. It's all roadside, non-farmed areas. Whether we will sever, cross, or otherwise limit access to agricultural land such as crops, hayfields, pastures, vineyards, or orchard. The only small impact might be, a roadside crossing that there's construction in front of for a short duration. So that answer would be no, or small impact. The next one is excavation or compaction of the soil profile of active agricultural land. No impact or small impact. It will irreversibly convert more than 2.5 acres of land to non-agricultural, or more than 10 acres if not within an ag district, and no, our disturbance isn't going to do that. It will disrupt or prevent installation of a land management system for agriculture, no, and that's part of the purpose of the lateral restrictions. It may result directly or indirectly in increased development or potential pressure on farmland. The answer to that is instinctively yes, but it's rated as small because of the lateral restrictions. The purpose of the district is principally to serve existing residences. The proposed plan is not consistent with our farmland protection plan, and we have, again, no or a small impact. Actually, this area has been studied for water districts because of problems there for about 8 years, I think. I think this is the 3rd or 4th shot at this. Next question is impact on aesthetic resources, and the answer is no. Again, we're in proximity to some UNAs, but they're over a quarter mile from the site and at a significantly different elevation and not even visible from the site, and the impacts would be largely temporary because they're construction oriented. Once the pipe's in the ground, not really an impact. Number 10, historic and archaeological resources. We said no, but again, we note that some of the main construction will be within a half mile of a registered historic building, which is Rogues Harbor, and there's a SHPO designated sensitive area, but the impacts are not expected given separation distances and construction only on lands previously disturbed by highways. Impact on open space and recreation, no. Impact on CEAs, no. Again, there's not one there. No impact on transportation, but minor temporary traffic controls on side roads. No impact on energy, only temporary short-term noise and exhaust in terms of construction details, so that was generally a no. No known impacts on human health. Actually, we think getting a treated uniform water supply of the quality of Bolton Point is a plus. We find it consistent with community plans and consistent with the character of that area. It is particularly densely populated for an agricultural area. There's a lot of houses that are going to benefit from this. There are some that like it, some that don't. Based on that, there's a proposed finding statement after all the 70 or 80 different impacts are measured. The finding statement basically says that based upon the information in Part 1 of the EAF, the engineering report, 2 final notices of intent within the agricultural district, there are no anticipated or potential impacts that may be of a size or nature that are classified as moderate or significant. As the impacts are minor, the project impacts are mitigated by siting of the improvements in and adjacent to existing highway rights-of-way, as well as mitigated by prior project planning permitting the temporary nature of potential disturbances. After completion, the project will consist of underground pipes, valves, and fire hydrants used to distribute potable water, and surface soils will be fully restored and vegetated. And then there's a finding statement as to the particular impacts that were identified as yes, and they basically summarize in a very short form the temporary nature of the impact, the distance and elevation differences for the UNA that's in the area, the One Creek crossing, and some of the conclusions that I've already read concerning distances and agricultural land impacts, and the restrictions that are put in place on extending the district into agricultural land so as to prevent loss of agricultural resources. Based on all of that, in this type 1 review, again, the recommendation is a negative declaration, but you're free to, I know you've had it for a while, but if there's questions, now's the time. And this one did list the comptroller's office.
I saw that, yeah.
So did I. So I saw it on one and not on the other. Can't explain it, but typos happen.
Typos happen.
They do.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns from the board?
What is the percent of people for in the district?
The protocol is, and Doug was part of this when the policy was made, when he was on the Water Supervisory Board, is you canvass and you get 75% yes.
Give or take.
Give or take. And it's right up front. If, hypothetically, this was the cost, if it was, would you be in favor of having water? And we get that number from TG Miller. We just don't make it up ourselves. And then we go back to once we have as many people, we send out letters registered mail. Everybody, don't just hit the magic number and then stop. We send out letters registered mail. There's some people that don't live there anymore, whatever the reason. We try to make every effort possible to communicate to people. And the reason that I went out and did it this time was because the old petition got lost. The other reason is because when I approached the person who did it last time, he said, you know what, I did it. Well, out of fairness, I said, with many of these things, we're going to address this, and we're going to either get a yes or a no out of this, and we're going to put it to bed one way or the other. So we had, Drake Road, very similar, all these things very similar. So having said that, we went through, and then Mr. Emmerich comes through and says, well, can I have water? I said, well, Doug, here's the petition, canvass the area, and if you get at least 75% of the additional, yes. Okay? And then it was, Mr. Fenner came up to me, can we have water that goes up to where the yoga farm is, right there? And I said, here's a petition, you can go do it. And then we talked to the engineer and said, does that trigger above the threshold or not? Because we've had other people that want to do it on the other side of Buck Road, off Auburn, but the pressure wasn't there, so there's limitations and everything. So short story long is that we had, and plus we've had 2 public hearings about this, 2 public meetings that people have been attending to. So there's been information ad nauseum out there as far as what the process is, whether you're for it or against it. So having said that, the Water and Sewer Advisory Board advised to move forward, and I do like the fact they say 75% canvassing, approximately, because that means that some people change their mind. When we do our map plan report, it's taxpayers' money. If you're not in that water district, you're paying for it. And we want to make doggone sure there's enough positives out there so that as we start to recoup our money afterwards once the district is formed, otherwise I don't think we're being responsible. So that's another reason why we have these thresholds. Now there may be a vote on this. I've got water. I have no skin in this game as far as this goes, and I've said that time and time again. If people want to put a petition together, they got 30 days to do this and have at it. And then 51% of those people in that proposed district, whoever says yes or no, whoever gets the 51%, it goes in that direction, end of story. Does that kind of answer your question?
But currently, we're at 75. That was the last check.
The last check was actually probably over that because I haven't seen any more minuses than positives.
The initial came in, and that's the reason that it was done that way, well over a decade ago, is because when the number comes, it's easy to say yes until it's time to write the check. So the number was, considering a lot of the people really need water or want water and have for decades in some of these districts, 75% gives you some room for the people that will drop off when it comes time to sign on the dotted line, or that changed their mind or sold their property and the new owner doesn't want to jump in. So the original count was right at about 75%. I think it didn't come out perfect. It was like 74.92 or something strange like that. But as we added the two other ones, those were near unanimous, and it jumped it over. Where it is, I couldn't guess. Did you still want me to address the election process, or you think you did it on the last one and people heard it?
Let's say it again. You're right out there in front, and people can view this online. Then here's all the information right there if people are concerned about it.
Well, yeah, the election process involves creating a special balloting system. It's a town election. It's only people in the district vote. There's very complicated rules about who gets that vote. It's based on the last completed assessment roll. So if you recently bought your home, you can't vote. If you're not vested in title to the land, you can't vote. I'm not sure that's particularly fair, but that is New York State. One of the twists that I think is really important for people to learn about, because the one time that we did have a vote, and it's very expensive to run a special election, the county is not involved, and when they are, it's also very expensive. But if a vote is called and the town spends $5,000 or $10,000 on printing ballots and hiring election inspectors and printing up ballot on the voter registries and goes through the whole 9 yards, special notices, special hearings, everything that's required to do an election, all of those costs become district expenses if the vote is a plus. So I think it's important for neighbors both for and against to understand that if you call for the vote and spend $10,000 to get an answer that already exists, that's not a good expenditure of that money. But it's your right to expend it as individual citizens and as a collective. That's how it works. You're forming a unique and very special unit of government because, believe it or not, despite being the 21st century, it is not within the authority of a town in the state of New York to provide water or sewer for its citizens. It's not one of the town functions. That's why you have to create a special type of government called a special district and its own taxing authority. So you're creating a special mini government within the town to manage your water supply, and there'll be an annual hearing every year on the cost of that water, and you should all attend because it's part of the budget process. But if you call for an election and it passes, you'll be paying that money back to the town, just to be clear.
If there is a vote called, how are the individual households notified of that vote? Is it going to be paper, agenda, or by mail?
Well, that would be up to the town, but at a minimum, they would have to publish various notices and abstracts in the newspaper, and there are timing rules for when that would happen. Most people would be very well aware of it because I think last time we did send out notices to everyone in the district as to the location and date of and time of the election, and I believe last time we ran a full election day. We're not required to. We can do like a 9 to 5, but I think we did a 7 to 7 or something like that because there were people that came in from out of town to vote. So you would have to comply with the election law and town law Article 6 and 7, and they don't play well together because they were written for very different purposes at very different times. But I would suggest that you know, it costs a little more, but giving a full and fair opportunity for everybody who works first, second, and third shift to get in and vote if they want to would be appropriate.
I would also agree that sending a letter to everybody in the district would be appropriate, even if it's not required.
We pretty much have to compile a list of all the property owners based on assessment rolls and deed records, so we've got all the information, and it's, if you can do a mail merge, it's going to be about 60 pieces of paper. It's not that big a deal.
No, it's in the map plan report. All those.
Yeah, well, the tax parcel numbers and everything are in there as well, but seeing who is actually officially the title owner as of the last completed official assessment roll is the standard, fair or not. And when people have questions, I own the property, my wife and I jointly own the property, or me and my brother jointly own the property, that would be 2 votes. Each person who's entitled gets a vote. Corporations, LLCs, trusts, 1 vote. There's some squirrely rules about other types of entities, but if you have a unique title situation, ask in advance. No vote will be thrown out, but if it's potentially an improper vote, it's set aside and counted or considered by the official people that open the ballots if it's close enough that the vote matters. But if it's 80% in favor and there's one that we're not sure the person had the right to vote, well, we'll open it and see what they said, but it doesn't affect the outcome. So same way that happens in a general election. If for some reason you're not there, they give you a special ballot and you put it in a different spot. Do the same thing at the town level too.
So go to simple majority or
Yes.
plurality?
50%, yeah, 50% plus 1, not 51%. You just have to clear 50% of the total number of voters.
Anyone else? If not, I'd like to entertain a resolution making the determination of environmental significance for Consolidated Water District Extension number 3 and approving public interest order information and establishment of such Consolidated Water District Extension number 3 subject to permissive referendum and the approval of the New York State Comptroller.
I'll second that.
Okay. Mrs. Munson?
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Doug Dave.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Moving on to item number 13, Mike Sigler. Hi, Mike.
Hi, thanks for having me again. All this talk of water, I just wanted to say, I feel for the people on Van Austin Road. If you wanted to extend the Peruville Road District up, just up Peruville a little bit further, that'd be great. Point that.
Mike, we can give you a petition.
Give him a petition.
You can go. You can wear the bullseye this time.
I'm a party of one on that road, so I don't know. But I have a ton of news to share. I'll try to get through it as quickly as possible. The county has been pushing for a 3rd county court judge to relieve some of the burden. There's a big load on the courts right now. The population obviously has grown, and they just have a lot more cases. They have a lot more family court cases, so definitely has been a backlog. We asked the state to approve this 3rd judge, and the Senate did approve that. And we want to thank Senators Helming, Stewart, and O'Mara. They were all co-sponsors of this. And that has passed the Senate. It's not passed the Assembly yet, and I'll get to that in a second. The Senators were also able to get passed in the Senate expansion of our healthcare consortium. The town obviously is a member, and it works out very well, the healthcare consortium. What we want to do is we want to be offering that to NGOs, kind of like your rural library here. You know, they have high healthcare costs. If they could join the consortium too, that would be great for them. I'm happy to say that the Senate did pass that. So I want to thank Senator Stewart. He really led the way on that. And Helming, she co-sponsored that bill. It's really great news. The problem now is the Assembly kind of got word today. Didn't hear about the judge, but we did hear about the consortium. That it's kind of waffling in the Assembly. So if anybody here has any pull with our Assemblywoman, kind of give her a call and say, hey, it would be great if you kept pushing for this, because we would like to get that before end of session. If not, it'll come up next year, but obviously, things, if they don't get passed now, it's like, okay, we're going to wait, and then it gets buried again. I would like to see that get passed right now. Last night, we approved the adoption of the Tompkins Cortland Community College operating budget for the coming academic year. There's really no increase in sponsor support. We're kind of locked into that. We would like to. The sense of the legislature is that they'd like to give more money to Tompkins County. Cortland has some financial difficulties they have for a number of years, so it's kind of hard to get any more money out of Cortland right now. Hopefully things will change for them. We do foot about 64% of that bill to the tune of $2.97 million. They pick up 36%. We also authorized County Administrator Jason Molino to execute a new memorandum of understanding with Tompkins County Area Development. That's for their economic services. This was a pretty heated debate, not heated. Both sides had good points. Both sides are right. This is one of those cases where you can have two different viewpoints and they both be right. My personal viewpoint, I was pretty happy with the way they were funded right now. They get a larger share of the room tax, about 45%. Over the course of this agreement, it's going to get knocked down to 25%. I look at it the same way that Rich Johns looked at this, is that the room tax is kind of like a benefit tax. The hotels are paying us money. We're supposed to invest that money in a way that's going to put more heads in their beds. I mean, that's kind of it, right? So we do fund other things, like things that don't really bring in. A lot of our theaters, although they're great, and I enjoy them because I like the theater, they don't really bring in tourists from out of the county. They do, though, enhance the experience for when people are already here, so that hopefully they'll return. So there's an argument on either side for that. But they will still be getting room tax money. It'll just be a lower amount. We're going to then make up the difference of their budget now out of the property tax. So will taxes go up? Maybe, unless we can find that money someplace else, or if, obviously if assessments go up again, then we can offset the cost. Next. So that was recommended by the, like I said, the Planning and Development Environmental Quality Committee, and that was approved. So that's what we're going ahead for the next 5 years. Earlier in the month, the county did accept the $14.2 million for the airport. The big thing here is, it's great the state returned your tax money to redo the airport. Still, it's a $22 million project, so that means that the county is on the hook for $8 million. We are confident that that money will come through in certain avenues like the FAA and through other grants. If it doesn't, though, we're still on the hook for it. Now, that doesn't come out of the property tax, though. That would come out of fees from the airport. That would come out of their other various fees that they collect. But still, it comes out of tax money that's local. So people should be aware of that. Like I said, it's not ever going to come out of your property tax because we don't do that at this county. Some people argue we should, but I am not one of those people. So, child care, enormously expensive. It is hitting our local families hard. As you all know, we actually had a meeting this morning that covered this a little bit about universal pre-K and things like that. This was all just on child care. We did appropriate $25,000 in our contingent funding to start this program. We're going to fund a part-time child care planner developer position at the Child Development Council. The position that's going to coordinate group family child care network, which will then provide administrative support to keep existing daycare programs open and to help new sites and providers become established. There's a lot of laws, a lot of hurdles you have to jump through or jump over to become a daycare. Also, a lot of these daycares are kind of small. I mean, some of these people are just want to come out of their houses, and they don't have that kind of administrative support that they may need. Even one that may have 20 kids in it that's certified by the state, they're doing payroll. Okay, maybe they can do payroll out of someplace else. Maybe we can consolidate that under one roof so you have kind of a clearinghouse for childcare. Anything really to get the cost down, because it's really the second most expensive thing for parents is childcare, right outside of rent and mortgage. The legislature also, without dissent, we urge passage of the proposed state home rule legislation. This was introduced by our Senator O'Meara. It amends the section of New York State County law to permit Tompkins County to use local funds to develop, maintain, and manage affordable housing. This is something Martha Robertson has been on about. She's looking for about $3 million in county money that we could then put towards affordable housing. We do not know, we have no plan on how that money is going to be spent yet. That is something that is going to be, I don't think it's going to be contentious, but it's something that needs to be laid out. A lot of people don't want that to go just directly to developers. I don't think government's terribly good at doing affordable housing. But as you guys know, you're doing it right now, right? You're putting in a water district, you're putting in sewer. These are the kind of things you need for development. If the county had funds available to kind of push that along, City of Ithaca, there's a lot of hurdles you have to jump over just to build a building there. If we could use that money to kind of clear some of those and hopefully speed up some of this affordable housing. Also, Chair Martha Robertson, as recommended by the county's Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, proclaimed June 2018 Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer, Questioning, Intersex, and Asexual Pride Month in Tompkins County. As you know, we did the flag a couple of years ago. It is calling upon all members of the community to join in celebrating the contributions of the LGBTQIA+ residents and renewing the commitment and actions to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists. So I want you to do that. I want to thank you again for having me. I also want to thank Marcia Lynch. She's our public information officer. I draw from her reports very quickly. So I just want to make that clear. All right, thank you.
Does the board have any questions for Michael? Okay, thank you.
Easy peasy. Thank you very much. I love it.
Is your barn done?
The barn is going well. The barn, I think, the corner. Yeah, it's it was between that or the barn falling down. And Louise tells me it's the oldest barn in Lansing. I don't. He's the town historian, so I'm going to go with that.
Very fancy.
1806. So we'll say. Thanks.
Okay, item number 14 is our report from Steve Cole, Park and Recreation.
Just a couple of quick things. Just for the record, we've been very lucky over the years to have a lot of great volunteer coaches, and one of our volunteer wrestling coaches is going to go to the World Championships this past weekend. It's not that coach up there, but he knows which coach it is, Kyle Day. Just a couple of quick points. We picked up a couple of portable pitching mounds. One was as a result of a fundraiser with Ryan Mayo and Doug Bowles, and the other was a memorial to Kyle Arison. The Arison family donated that. So we've never had these before. They're outstanding. Great teaching tool, good things to play off of for travel and in-house games.
Can I ask a question about that?
You
What are
may.
they made of?
Actually, visually from the outside, they look exactly the same. They're kind of built the same. One is made out of fiberglass underneath, and the other one is a solid rubber. So we have two different types of construction, but both will do the same thing on the outside. Really neat. Let's see. Also this coming Saturday is a one-pitch softball tournament, also put on by Jenny Arison in memory of her son. Any of the funds that come from that actually go into his scholarship in his name, and that scholarship is for Recreation Department programs. And as Mike alluded to about child care, one of our 20 or 30 programs that we run during the summer is Myers Park Day Camp. It's day camp, it's not daycare. But by the end of tomorrow, I think all 5 of our sessions will be sold out, and that will include a fair amount of scholarships too that will come from that fund and monies raised by teachers down at the school. Benji Parks and Eric Stickler working hard on the Adam Heck soccer camp. That's going to go the second week in August. Last year we were around 240 kids in that camp. It draws from all over our region. That's a pretty big undertaking. The only other little scheduling change that'll be new for us, our youth ball soccer program generally kicks off on around what this year would be September 4th. We're going to try something different. It's a little aggressive and it could be a challenge. Instead of starting it then, we're going to start it on August 20th. That does 2 things for us. It's going to save us some functional money with the amount of paint that we spray down to hold the lines. So our crew will convert our baseball, softball fields in virtually 2 or 3 days at the end of the travel season into a soccer complex and football. So the camp for about 240 kids occurs in August, from August 6th to the 10th, and then those lines basically sit there until the first week in September, and you have to keep touching them up, otherwise you lose them, and it's very painstaking to find those lines and repaint them. So we're going to launch the soccer program earlier. It'll give the kids another week or so of playing, and it'll also give them more playing in daylight as opposed to the last week of the program, which they virtually get out of their car, run to the field, play for 20 minutes, it's dark, they go home, it's over. So I think this will be good. I think where the pressure will come in for our department is trying to get the over 200 kids that play and 20 teams worth of coaches to commit and do that. And that's something I usually takes me a fair amount of phone calls and coercing to do. And that will now have to be done by the 15th of August. And then we'll launch it and go. The one point I want to make out about the parks is that some time ago I was approached by Dr. McAllister, who is a pretty darn good dermatologist over at Ithaca Dermatology. She was in the park last year with her kids on the playground and noticed that there was really no cover for shade down there. So she went through the channels and was American Academy of Dermatology. She partnered with them to get us a grant. Virtually, she's writing the check for the grant. And we're going to get a shade structure down there. I received the blueprints on it this morning, and that should probably take place, I'm going to guess, within the next month. So that'll go on the large playground. It'll hang over the top area because it's not, you don't get, for the amount of money that it costs, you'd think there would be more shade than that. But it will cast shade. It'll cast shade on our youngest users, and that's a good thing. So that's everything else you guys can read. Those are the highlights.
Any other questions for Steve? Okay, thank you. Item 16 is Mike Long, our planning consultant. That's good, didn't I? How could I miss you?
That was
okay.
okay.
He wouldn't have come here.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to skip me, I'd just skip.
I'm sorry. I didn't know you were 15. I did not do that on purpose to see if you were paying it right.
So anyways, I was going to say I thought I was probably done with construction at the park, but depending on what the shade structure is, maybe not. So anyways, we've got a bunch of stuff wrapped up for the Parks and Rec as far as some rehab on things. Construction season obviously in full swing. We've been paving, doing a bunch of drainage work and all that stuff going in the midst of waiting for easements to be signed on the Drake Road, which looks like we're doing pretty well on that. So with hopes to get that under construction around the week of the 23rd of July, I hope. And looking to, all goes well, have that completed so people will be able to start making connections that first week in September, hopefully. In the midst of all of that, we've had several water main breaks on a section of Trip Hammer Road, which I've had some conversation with Dave. There again, I guess it's part of moving forward with people kind of wondering, how it all works with the highway department installing new water or whatever. The realization is on average a couple thousand feet a year of replacement line going by the highway department. So I mean, this is just kind of part and parcel of what we already do. So it's, if we ever get to that point, folks actually address that. So I've had some conversation with Dave, working with him a little bit to put some numbers together. Probably here for next month or something, we'll have some numbers. Obviously, the CWD is fairly flush to handle these things that come about. So hopefully we'll have some numbers together on that. That would look like, my intent would be to try to move into that, right there in September and get that kind of done so we don't deal with that. It's a section that already has multiple bands on it, and the deterioration of that section is getting bad. So rather than try to keep band-aiding it, I think we just need to move forward. In this section, it would be essentially Asbury Road to Hillcrest. So we'll hopefully have that stuff put together with an idea, which we'll probably discuss at the Water and Sewer Advisory Board too. Other than that, I guess we'll be in hopes of getting our stone dust project, taken care of next week if all goes well there. So we'll have everything hopefully in ship shape, and between Salt Point and the park, helping those guys out.
And no more water breaks.
Right. So just, in hopes to have everything put together in nice shape, so people can, hopefully enjoy the 4th of July weekend there and stuff. And Well, it's not just water breaks, you had a storm that you had to clean up after.
Well, yes, we did, yeah, we had that, that's, I forgot, that just got into sleep time, so.
I was impressed at how quickly you got all that stuff.
Oh, thank you. So, yep, we just, narrow band went through and, I mean, took some awfully large trees and,
Threw them all over the place.
oh, yeah, so, but yes, we dealt with that too, so. I guess with that being said, if there's any other questions, sure, if not, carry on. Thanks.
Thank you for all you do, Greg. Thanks. Nicole, I guess you are next. Item number 16.
We'll also work on the highlights. So in our report, we've got some things yelled out. I have a weekly conference call with the Cornerstone Group about the project. Probably one of the next things that we have to worry about is doing the subdivision of the parcel, creating the 13.5 acres for this. And as you know, there's also been a request to put together engineer's estimate for the finishing of the town road portion. They would then give us a letter of credit in anticipation of putting the sub-base in, the binder, and leaving the top course off until after they have got that first phase completed. So again, that's a consideration to go before the town board. They've asked me if we can hopefully discuss that at the July 18th meeting, and we can get some kind of a resolution at that point. That would be their request. But the other thing they'd like to know is there a quote name for the town road section? At this point, they have suggested a road for the private section of it. But I think we need to try to focus on that as well.
I said Cricket's Way.
Cricket's Way. The gas line is nowhere.
Yeah, it's kind of
the sewer agreement, the three-party agreement, because the town board did adopt the MAD plan report, we have to have the Village of Hugo Heights, the Village of Lansing amend the original MOU because there were some additional parcels. Part of that, as you may recall, the route location changed a little bit with the Village of Lansing's jumping and trying to create a little bit more of a project out of it. So that'll go before the villages and come back to the town. TCAT, we had a very nice public meeting here on June 13th where they got some input on additional services to the town of Lansing. There was a conversation about trying to have midday service level and possibly adjusting the evening and morning runs. And so they were getting feedback from some of their current riders and trying to think of other ways that we can get some additional people. So the bus stop at TCAT is, we've talked about a couple. One, they are very interested in using the existing lot here at Town Hall and maybe putting a structure up. One of the existing structures they have now is Matt Yarrow told me he'll get us one of the nice ones and relocate it here. Again, we have to discuss where exactly it would be and what kind of parameters there would be. But the more important thing was that Larry Fabroni and myself attended the Cornell engineering workshop where they're doing a prototype design of a new solar-powered bus shelter. And they would like to use it at a specific location. And the conversation was, can the village solar site be the location of the new test demonstration project? So the Lucentes are here. They've opened arms, say this is a great idea. Let's try and work this out. And they've reasoned through Larry's interpretations that we could probably also help a little bit with the site preparations of those things. So we were trying to set up a specific on-site meeting to look at exactly where that might be. I know in the past they've talked about Warren Road. I know in the past TCAT was not interested in Warren Road. The Village Solar Project has indicated that they'd be very interested in trying to find a site within the complex to try to have a location where there can be pickup and drop-offs. So we've tried to schedule a meeting to actually get a bunch of concerned individuals together, the decision makers between the planning board and others, to go out and take a look at where it could be with TCAT. And so they've agreed to do that. We're trying to set up a date now. So it looks like Larry Fabroni's out of town today, and we weren't sure if we could get it set up for next week. TCAT people are out of town after that, so we may be the second week in July when that happens. So we'll skip over to the next page. Under the comprehensive plan, Mr. Dave had suggested that we put together a list of events and dates. And so what I had done was prepared it for the planning board to recommend that they would be the lead organization that was working on the comprehensive plan, turning it into the land use updates. And so we talked about a general schedule of events. So in July, we try to get a list of the changes that we would like. August, we work on the land use definitions to try to figure out things that we're missing or things that need to be adjusted. September, look at specific land use corridors in terms of potential changes within the commercial low impact mixed use. October, again, trying to look at the residential zones and whether or not the transitions work well. November, talked about possibly doing the agricultural district, trying to get the farmers at that point, get them a little bit more involved again with what the proposed ag impacts would be. And then possibly in December, having it all put together so we can get some public informational meetings out there. So again, this is kind of a tentative outline that we have given the planning board members for some input. In addition to the planning board members, we would have the 2 town board liaisons, Joe and Doug would participate, as well as staff would be Guy, Linda, and myself, trying to round out the group. So.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
As you get into these topics, I assume there'll be more conversation generated and the schedule may push as you need additional time.
I'm sure it will push. So, but this was just kind of a general overview. I was trying to get input from the planning board members. Hopefully at the next planning board meeting we'll have a little bit of discussion about that. So,
Mike, do we know what the, are we going to have extra meetings with that?
We can have extra meetings. What I was hoping was to have at least one meeting a month that would be dedicated just to the land use ordinance. If we
that
need,
in addition to the two planning board?
It could be in addition to, but if we don't have any agenda items for the planning board, then we could use
no, that makes sense.
So at this point, we're actually getting down to planning board meeting agenda items. So that would be good. Next thing is the New York State grant that you guys would like me to work on for Myers Park. So I've been working on that. It's due July 27th. Steve Colt had recommended that we make a slight adjustment to the master plan and to create a multi-use facility that would be in the center of the park that would use as a bigger bandstand, could be used for picnics, weddings, photographs, other types of things. So we sketched up some ideas. I then met with Beardsley to try to add that to our existing plan, to update it. And we also need to have the budget numbers updated because it's now a year later. So hopefully by the end of next week, I'll have a package back. I'd like to, at some point, I have to bring it back to the town board for a resolution to submit the grant application. And secondly, also to probably update the seeker that we did with the last grant application. So there's 2 programs I'm looking at in terms of applying for. One is the waterfront revitalization program through the Department of State. That's a 75% grant, 25% local match. That's the program we used last year. There's also a New York State Environmental Protection Fund grant, which is a 50-50 match. So it'd be 50% grant of state funds versus 50% worth of local match. Again, we can use in-kind labor, the recreation department, the highway department. Again, as you know, Dave's been working on the dredging applications for Salmon Creek and the marina, the seawalls and things of that nature. So hope we can use that as part of the components. And as Steve has told me, when we get the budget numbers, we'll try to put together a budget that can go to the town board. But those are the higher priority things. I'm trying to get that stuff done.
I have a question about the new multi-use facility. We had talked about a larger pavilion multi-use facility out closer to the point. Is this in addition to that or replacing that?
It is.
Okay. So there's more room.
The way the past couple of weeks have gone, if we had 4 more pavilions in the park spread around, they'd be sold out too. The amount of hills we have to tell people when they call us is incredible lately.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next, in terms of planning board, the planning board at their last meeting approved 2 subdivision requests. One for Cleveland's 2-lot subdivision at 18 and 20 Lakeview Drive. An old subdivision that had been merged together. That was an easier one. And then also discuss the village solar project, which is before you tonight on your board of resolutions. The planning board members had talked about several things. Again, the scheduling of events is very interested with the when the community buildings going to be completed. And as you can see in your resolution, December 31st, 2020 is the anticipated completion date of the community building. But they've also asked to get an update on the bus stop location, wherever it may be on Warren or within the PDA. Also the exterior trails, again, there was some concerns about that. Adding a dog park, the basketball court, where those will be located. So they were going to get us a more specific live location and time frame for all of those things. So. And then last but not least is the items on Monday's agenda. We have two. East Shore Christian Fellowship Church is going to amend their site plan. They're going to have a smaller building and rearrange their parking lot. Finger Lakes Marina, there's going to be a public hearing to start that process. Again, trying to get the permits from DEC and the Army Corps will be, again, I haven't had a chance to talk with Guy, but I assume a coordinated review, so we start the 30-day period for notification. Hopefully the planning board will become the lead agency, and then we'll start that process. John Anderson is the engineer on that project, actually both projects. And then we've also got the packet from NICEAG for the town barn for their application for that as well, for the new cell tower. So that's the next project that's coming after that. So I think that's about it for now. You got any other questions?
Any questions or comments for our guy?
Just quickly, what's happening with the gun club's application?
Well, we have not received any new additional information. There has been some conversation about next steps in the process. As you know, the planning board members asked for several items. We gave them a list of things and have not heard back yet what their intentions are specifically about providing that or not. I know there's been some conversations. The EPA is also, been involved. I know that they have requested an extension in terms of the timeline. I don't know if they've heard anything officially yet. I just heard verbally that they were asked for something because they were in the process of trying to resolve some things. But
so we have no idea when they're going to take their next step?
Not really. Again, we've been trying to leave it up to them to work at their pace. Again, the list that we gave them was fairly extensive. So again, it may take them a long time to get it together, or it could be quickly, I don't know.
I understand. I'm just concerned about more lead going into Salmon Creek every time they have a shoot.
That's true.
Are they having it?
Yes. Yes, they are using the range.
The open range or the trap
Trap range.
No, I mean the rifle. Are they using the rifle range and the pistol range where the bullets are going into a trap, or are they using the open grounds?
They're in the open grounds.
Okay.
It is okay.
I know, why are they allowed to continue to do that when they've been told to stop? I mean, why can't anyone from the town make them stop doing that?
I mean, I guess a guy from the EPA is in Puerto
He's in
Rico.
Puerto Rico. He'll be on assignment
So
for
we
a while.
don't have an EPA now.
But why isn't they continue to shoot? They're allowed by the town to continue to shoot the lead. They've been told to stop.
So maybe that's a attorney question. Is there any jurisdiction we have for the town to do what you're concerned about or not?
Well, they're an existing grandfathered non-conforming use.
Their consent order says they will stop 180.
Yeah, the EPA they're supposed to be an active consent order in order to undertake those activities, and I didn't think they had an active consent order.
They got a consent order they signed.
Right.
A year and a half ago, it said in a year and a half, all lead going into the creek will stop at that point. And that's what they've asked for an extension for. But they're past the point where their consent order said they had to stop, and they haven't got the extension yet.
So there should be some regulatory.
Sounds like the
Well, yeah, I don't think the
Yeah,
town can enforce the EPA's requirements.
we can't, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
It sounds like it's the EPA.
Well, yeah, what's that jurisdiction? And do we just have to, like I said, what's that jurisdiction? You know, do we have jurisdiction? Don't we have jurisdiction? I don't.
Well, we have the land use jurisdiction if they want to change their site or get a special use permit or whatever, that's generally our jurisdiction. We don't have direct RECRA jurisdiction. The town could bring I mean, anybody can bring a private citizen's action if they want to, under RECRA of the Clean Water Act, but the town doesn't have any say in that. That would be a federal claim, presumably.
Can you describe how that would work? Briefly.
You'd find an environmental attorney that understood that stuff, and you'd file a summons and complaint in federal court. I don't know if there's concurrent jurisdiction with the state courts. It's not really, I mean, I've done some environmental work, but, I stopped going to federal court years ago. It became such a specialty unto itself. It's, our industry's like every other one. I mean, there's no jacks of all trade left. I can find out. I mean, there's a firm I work with in Rochester on that stuff, on complex environmental litigation. Fortunately, I don't get into it much.
But the town could communicate with the DEC about, the EPA about following through on.
Yeah, the DEC does have jurisdiction.
Right, they have jurisdiction.
Because the DEC is the actual enforcement agency of RECRA, because New York State has its own policy that complies. So it's sort of like Speedy's permits. You get your state pollution discharge permit from New York State because New York State has a program that qualifies under what's called the NPDES program of the EPA. So, pun not intended, everything flows downhill. So RECRA works the same way. Some states have opted into state level enforcement, in which case their primary enforcement jurisdiction, and some have not, in which case it stays the federal government. New York has opted into private enforcement, and the DEC, I would think, would be involved. I've been surprised by the absence, but they could be very well coordinating with the EPA, and we just don't know it.
We've certainly been trying to keep DEC involved in our correspondences.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. I suspect that there's a big reason we have, I don't know, but I suspect they're having a big snag at EPA, and that's why we haven't heard from them. I mean, it's been months and there's been no submission.
Well, yeah, as was noted, the primary staff person's on assignment in Puerto Rico, so.
Keep that good job when he was around.
Well, it sounds like the first thing is, Mike, can you get a copy of this requested extension so that we know for a fact that it's been filed?
I can ask them for
I'd like to see it if you could. Thank you.
Yeah, they may require you to submit a FOIA.
So the planning board's not asking them for any timeline on, like, getting stuff to them?
We have identified many things for them to try.
I realize
get better
that, but I
decisions.
guess they don't have any timeline out there for them, like,
Not that it's like you're gonna be done tomorrow kind of thing, no.
Okay, thank you.
I heard recently they thought they didn't have to have an environmental assessment done. Is that not correct? The environmental, do you know anything about the environmental? Okay. I'll go to the meeting next week, so learn more. Thank you for bringing it up.
We do the best we can with what limits we have. Okay. Moving on to engineers report. Dave, do you have everything right here, or do you want to add some more stuff today?
Most of my list is online. I just want to point out we've been asked to update the town's consolidated district boundary map to incorporate the last 5 years or more worth of on-site users to bring them officially into the consolidated water district boundary through the map plan report process. So we will be pulling that together for July. Not on my list was also an update to cost estimates for the old Lansing Station Road water main extension, which originally was Consolidated Water District number 3, but we leapfrogged over that one. Last year, almost a year ago, through Ed's office, we had asked Norfolk Southern if they would entertain using some construction details that would save the project some money. Dealing with the railroad tracks has a large price tag in order to get under it or to work alongside of it. Given the lack of use, I guess, at this point of the tracks, we had asked if their construction standards could be relaxed so that there could be some savings to the town and to the residents. The response back from the railroad was send us $2,500 and we'll entertain your request. So what's been asked of me within the last several weeks is to update the cost estimates for that Lansing Station Road extension, assuming that we have to comply with the Norfolk Southern details. So I will do that, and then the next step would be to share that information with the community representative to see if, with those larger annual costs, there's still interest in the neighborhood to pursue the extension before the town coughs up $2,500 to get a yes or no answer out of Norfolk Southern.
This has been an adventure. I mean, you know, you talk about the gun club, I feel their pain. Bottom line is that now this cost is added on. We have to get another cost, start another petition, other people willing to do this, to get the 75%, come back to them, okay, Norfolk, can you do the $2,500 worth at your timetable, whenever that is?
Right.
Okay, meanwhile, we authorize the money for the map plan report, okay, it's moving forward, and hopefully that the railroad will do it within a reasonable amount of time so we can move forward with that and have another public hearing to see if that Consolidated District number 3-12585, or whatever it is, can move forward on that one. And because the pipe's got to go under the railroad, that's why.
Yeah, and homes are on the opposite side.
You cannot ask for a more perfect storm. This guy's gone. Puerto Rico, no, this guy retired. Didn't know he retired. He's now retired, passed on to number B. B is not my department going to C. C's not here, can't do it, back to D. The process goes on and on and on. So this is not unique, and it's tragic it isn't. You know, I wish it was. So meanwhile, call. And Dave, call. And then get the right people there and say, oh, I'm retired in a month. Oh, okay. Why didn't you do this sooner? Well, anyways, so here we are.
Yep. One last thing to report. The Burdickville pump station has been up and running for 4 or 5 months. Focal point staff who monitor the station must have keen ears because they had sensed that there were variations in the sounds coming out of the pumps when they were running concurrently, and raised the question about whether there was some imbalance in the connections between the motor and the actual water pump. There's a shaft that goes in between, and we asked the contractor to come back and take a look at the alignment of that shaft between motor and pump, and in fact they found that things are just a little bit out of perfect alignment. So they're back Thursday to reset and adjust that shaft alignment so that we have all 3 pumps sounding the same. So
They can
that's
do that
warranty. That's warranty work that they are paying for themselves.
Do they do that underwater?
Pardon me?
Is it underwater or is it exterior?
Fortunately, there's no leaks. It's all in the dry, so nobody gets wet.
Okay. Any other questions for engineer? Okay, thank you, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
We have no ad committee report this month, which is understandable. Before we move on to these resolutions, is there anyone here still for the Lansing flag and banner policies? The reason I'm asking is because Steve and Rock have been extremely patient. I appreciate that. I'd like to move them ahead if I can. They're the resolution for Village Solars, Village Circles, so we can get them out of here. Not that I don't like to throw you here, but like I said, okay, my apologies, once again, my apologies, should move you up faster, but anyways. So if you want to come forward, if there's any questions, we can answer them there. This actually will be item number 25. So one of the things we can do is we can move this resolution if there's movement forward and have the discussion, or you can have the discussion first if there you feel comfortable. Okay, is there a second? I'll second. Okay, Mrs. Munson?
Hang on one second.
I'm sorry, we're not syncing again.
I didn't do it to you this time.
Okay, so Joe made the motion and Doug did the second.
Correct.
Katrina? Bickowitz, sorry. Doug Dake?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Are we voting on the motion or just to,
I thought you said you asked for me to,
We're going to open this and then we'll have discussion.
we're opening a, what?
They moved and seconded, and now they're going to discuss, and then they'll vote later.
okay.
As it-
Yes. I don't know what you asked me for then.
We're asking because what you do is when you open the resolution and make it, excuse me, let's backtrack. You have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, that's what we threw off, my mistake. Any discussion? I wasn't trying to slip this through. So we have a first and a second, we have a motion and a second.
Okay.
Now that, is there any discussion? And then we open the floor for discussion.
You're asking me if I have discussion?
Nope, I'm asking any of the board members, is there any discussion on this resolution?
I was at the planning board meeting, I've watched this go by quite thoroughly. I don't know, Katrina might have some questions, I see my concerns are here in the resolution.
In that case,
Okay.
Mrs. Munson?
All right. Katrina Bickowitz?
Yes.
Doug Dake?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were very persuasive this evening, sir.
It's right on the throat, as you see.
Indeed. Thank you again.
Okay. Now I guess we can go on to 19. And this is the resolution approving bar and Herzinga outside user agreements.
Can you give me a brief background on what that's about?
Guy, you want to jump in?
Sure. When people are adjacent to or have access to a consolidated water district or extension main, they frequently ask to become an outside user of the district. People that are in the district are considered inside users. People that are outside the district, obviously outside users. So they want to hook up to the water supply, but they're not part of the benefit district. It's permissible by contract, but they have to pay their own freight. They can't have their right to use district water subsidized by the district users because people that are in the district pay the capital costs and the debt expense. So what an outside user agreement does is first it goes to the Water and Sewer Advisory Board, and principally three things are looked at. One is engineering feasibility. Is there suitable pressure and can the actual design and route, can you do it that way? Another issue is future planning issues. If we put an extension here, will that prevent a larger extension and benefit a whole neighborhood? And then there's some practical cost and legal issues that are looked at. If the people decide they want to go forward and when the Water and Sewer Advisory Board gives a preliminary okay, then they go and they make sure they get their easements, they have the ability to hook up, they go get the Bolton Point application and understand what's involved. They come back and they say, yeah, we definitely would like to eventually come into the district and get hooked up, etc. The Water and Sewer Advisory Board says yes or no to that, passes it on to the town board, and then a contract is signed and they pay, in most cases, double the water rate. It's got a separate charge line in the billing system at Bolton Point. They made much higher rate because they have to make up for the fact that they're not paying anything on their tax bill.
So they're not called an EDU?
No, they're not an EDU till they join in, but the old system used to be that we would do a separate map plan and report for each individual lot that came in. And that was, I argued for many a year that that was very expensive and inefficient, and it was costing residents far more than it needed to, because we could go to a system and have a smaller permit fee, and once we got a group of them together, do it all en masse.
Which you heard Dave refer to minutes ago.
Correct, correct. And periodically when we get, the number works out, you need somewhere around 7 or 8. So once the outside user agreement gives them a lot of information, they have to support the district because they're sort of pre-benefited. So they've already cast a yes vote, they're not really contestable proceedings, and they're brought into the district. So once they sign the outside user agreement, they're agreeing that eventually they'll come into the district and be duly taxed. So this is pretty common. In fact, there are entire municipalities that have outside user agreements, like Ulysses, by the way, purchases water from the town of Ithaca and resells it through Bolton Point. There's a lot of outside users in sewer districts. The idea is to eventually, the people that want to get in to fill in those lots. A lot of them, interestingly, there were these interesting lines that were created in all sorts of mapping historically, and one was to have the water district run only 300 feet from the highway. Well, some of these people want their entire parcel in because they want to build their house away from the road. So that's these last two that are coming in, these two people, they're already in the district, but it doesn't cover all of their land. So they don't necessarily need an outside user district, but if they get their house ready to go and it's built before we're done with bringing them into the district, they can sign the agreement and get hooked up. You know, it's up to them.
So when they pay double, let's say I'm in a district, we form a district like we just did tonight. I'm in, I'm paying an extra fee to cover all that pipe work, and someone wants to join in. Do I get a benefit from them paying part of that share as if they would have been originally? If we added them in originally, my cost would have been down slightly because it's been one more house paying all that infrastructure cost.
Once you get more than one, first of all, you can't really share lines because it can't be built that way. So they come in one property at a time. If you have a group of people that want to come in, they'd be a district extension.
No, I'm saying the district extension, they pay for the big water main hookups and stuff.
Right, but these outside users pay all their own infrastructure. The town doesn't pay for the pipes or the easements or the installation.
What about the O&M?
They pay for that.
So let's make the math easy and say, let's say there's a water rate of $1 per 1,000 gallons and a tax bill of $100. Okay, whatever they pay at the end of the year has to be reasonably calculated, so they're paying at least the same rate or more of what people in the district are. So in the consolidated water district, the math happens to work out with $155 that if you double the water rate, it comes out right at about $154 or $156. It went up, so it's a little higher. So people on outside districts pay a much higher rate for the water they consume, and that higher rate makes an equivalent contribution in cash to the taxes paid by the people in the district. And they pay for their own water.
But that money goes to Bolton Point, not the town, correct?
It goes to both.
It goes to both. So some of it is
goes back to the water district.
Okay. Right, Bolton Point doesn't collect the double.
Okay.
Bolton Point gets their base, and everything else goes to the consolidated water district.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Right, no, we don't pay the Bolton Point double, no.
Okay. It's just billed that way, and then it goes back to the district.
Well, you can look at, there's a resolution that outlines for number 9 accounts, and you'll see it again at budget time, and it does the calculation for the consolidated water district. We have not yet been required to do the calculation for extension 1 or extension 2. So we just have the number 9.
No, there is a separate paragraph for 1 and 2. They pay more also.
Right, they do as districts, but outside users to those districts, we haven't had to tackle that.
Right.
Each water district can have its own water rate because they have different expenses when you set up the district.
Right.
And you can use the water rate to make sure that you have enough O&M. The bigger the district, the less the cost to each individual user.
Right, I just want to make sure that when these folks sign on, that extra fee is going back into the taxing district so that everyone's getting the benefit.
Actually, the tax bill, the water bill actually goes to the town or the
Right.
municipality.
It
And
comes
then it's
to
dispersed
us.
out of that.
Oh, okay, which I don't care how, as long as eventually the money.
Comes to us, and then we give the money back to both points,
So-
how it works.
so-
Yeah,
so
we
there's both
pay for
points
their
under-
water usage and the rest goes into the general consolidated water district fund, and you would see it most likely as unexpended fund balance. So they're contributing the equivalent of tax payments to that fund balance.
Right.
For the wear and tear on the infrastructure that they're contributing to by drawing
So
water.
when Cricket goes down there and fixes the pipes, they're helping to pay for it.
That's correct. They're helping to pay for all the improvements district-wide.
Yeah, that was my concern.
Okay. Any other questions? May I entertain a resolution approving the bar in Herzinga? So moved.
I'll second.
Mrs. Munson?
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Doug Dave?
Yes.
Joseph Whitmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Resolution authorizing map plan report for 2018 consolidated water district extension for outside users. I think this is the next step we were describing before. This is the next one where now these people are folded back into the district now. They were outside users and now they're folded in. This is the next step, what we talked about
What number
before.
are we on right now?
We're on number 20. I'm not hopping around anymore, but
No. I'm just trying to, get in front of me what we're about to vote on.
It's okay. So this is what Guy mentioned before. Now they've been in there for a while. Now, because we have a number of them, rather than just do one at a time, what the policy is from the Water Industry Advisory Board is you like to collect 6, 7, or 8 of these at a time, and then or more, and then you roll them in. So now the consolidated water district users are now part of the district.
So
Right, because the fees, they pay a fee to become an outside water user district, and that's set aside to pay for the costs of doing the process.
So 1488 Ridge Road is going to see an actual change of instead of paying a double water rate, they're now going to see part of it on their tax bill and pay the direct water bill?
When they come in, they will pay a normal water bill. It may go up, it may go down, depending on their acreage and how the EDUs are calculated for
Right.
vacant land.
Right, are they going to see something on their tax bill as part of the
Yes.
district? So that's the change they're going to functionally see.
They come in and we start infilling the holes in our map.
Right.
It's a double benefit. We start making duplicate connections, so if you have a problem here, you can still get water to a hydrant that needs to fight a fire. So everyone sort of benefits, and they're pretty much paying their own way. The only reason this one is a little different is because we're also updating the map, which is not necessarily the responsibility. So there's a little bit of extra in the amount here because we haven't updated the official map since 2013, and we do have new districts, and we have incorporated 3 other groups of users.
And this that money comes out of the consolidated water district?
Right. Yeah, we need it for all sorts of stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
we're authorizing money and that's the fund it's coming out of.
That's correct.
Okay.
May I entertain a resolution?
Yeah.
Joe's made the motion. Katrina, did you second it?
I'll second it.
Mrs. Munson?
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Doug Dave?
Yes.
Joseph Whitmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Item number 21, resolution updating employee Corey Sills pay due to obtaining CDL. This is V license, which means you now can drive Big Tonka's.
I'll move it.
Second. Mrs. Munson?
Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Doug Dave?
Yes.
Joseph Whitmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Next item, resolution approving hiring of additional seasonal Lansing Highway Department employee for 2018.
I'll move.
I'll second. Cricket, you want to comment on this at all?
No.
This is standard operating procedure, basically.
No. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Just fill in another slot of what's atypical of us, so,
Okay.
for a several week period. So, yeah.
Any other comments? Mrs. Munson?
Katrina Binkowitz? Yes. Doug Dave?
Yes.
Joseph Whitmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Okay, the resolution approving town of Lansing flag and band policies.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have some questions, concerns, comments.
Okay, so you moved it, Katrina?
Yep.
Okay, we have a list of flags that this falls under, correct? This is what we do. There's a list.
There's a list of presidential proclamations and executive orders declaring certain months as months of observance.
And one of the concerns tonight is that flag falls under that category.
Yes, there are some months that have multiple, so they should be encouraged to get their application in ASAP because it's first come, first serve. But I think there are some flags that are beyond dispute that they meet this standard. The traditional pride flag, POW, MIA, President, Vice President, U.S. flags, Marines, Armed Forces, National Parks flags. There are some that are just so widely known and recognized they would be easy to get a permit for. There's others I think you want to take a look at and make sure you're dealing with something that's actually properly recognized. And that's why the standard's in there.
My concern is that we'll have the registration form at the clerk's office. That's available now.
Right here.
We have a criteria of acceptable, allowed, whatever the word is, flags that can be held for that month. There is a protocol of how many you can put on there. The American flag has to be the biggest. It has to be up. We have the New York State flag there, so we've covered that criteria.
Yeah, I'm going to send Title IV of the United States Codes. It has the protocols in it. You're not supposed to fly if you have flags running in a line. U.S. government, then state or local government, then private flags. I pretty much made the executive decision. You can agree or disagree that no commercial flags, no corporate flags, nothing like that.
Okay. The other thing for protocol is that they come into the clerk's office, and personally, if they're on there, it's up to the clerk to approve it, and then she has guidance, or he, in this case it's she, has guidance to say these are the ones that are allowed for right now. If there's something else, they can come to the board and we can discuss it, but right now we have this protocol which is consistent.
Well,
Then you need to change this.
right. What this says.
That's what I'm going to. Because otherwise, we need board approval, either the supervisor's approval, which I won't be here tomorrow unless they're going to be here at 7:35, or, but I don't really think it's up to the supervisor. I think it should be, our protocol should be in place so that our clerk simply has to follow what the procedure is.
I just want to ask our clerk if she's okay with that.
That's fine, as long as I have
Yeah,
rules.
And that's my next question, so yes, thank you. But this is all,
That's fine.
what the procedure and policy are.
I think it would make it much smoother because they're going to come in anyways and fill out the form. It would be really nice to just look and say, yep, that's flag's on the list. I can sign it and
there you go.
We're done. It would be much smoother, I think. Okay.
I agree. Let's make sure we're comparing apples and apples. There are some flags in relation to these months of observance that are nationally and internationally recognized as symbols of the actual month of observance, and there are some that are not. They may be perfectly fine, they may not be. One of the reasons that it's written the way it is because some of these things, you're not quite sure if there's an official flag for. You know, the armed forces, the pride
Women's
flag.
History Month is a difficult one to determine a flag for.
Well, and there's several competing flags, so I mean, I think you need to have something there to say that, yes, this is actually recognized as associated with that. The last thing you want is to be starting to say, no, we choose that flag over that flag. So I think if the town board had a list that was approved, that they understood were automatically recognized, and she could, yep, this is an approved flag, and it meets the standard. Not yet. What we have is an approved list of days. I was going to suggest if you want to go that way, that you just say that the officially recognized flags, like the U.S. and the historical U.S. flags, Betsy Ross up to the 50 we have, the UN flag, the National Park flag, the Armed Forces flags, POW, MIA, and the President and Vice President have official recognized flags. I don't think we'd ever fly them, but there are some flags that are recognized. You can just put on a pre-approved list by quick motion so she knows, and then as other ones come up, someone says, hey, by the way, it's National Small Mammal Month flag. Here's a squirrel. Would you fly it? Then
All policies can be tweaked.
Okay, I want to figure out a way to have that flag available to be flown tomorrow, because I'd like to move that forward. But I agree with you. I don't want Debbie sitting there going, which flag is Women's History Month? Because it's not there is no official flag, but there's lots of flags out there. And I don't want to have you sitting there trying to decide which one's which, because that's not a good use of your time.
How about we keep it simple? We only have one official request right now, and everyone's willing to approve it. Let's approve that as the first official flag in addition to the U.S. flag and the New York State flag. And as other requests come in, you can add them.
So we approve it as Debbie can approve things that are on the list, and we will continually add to the list as applications come in.
You have, it says at the end that your policy is that you can adjust your policy.
Right, that's what I'm hearing as a way of working it, is that we start a list as a board of approved flags.
Right, that would work.
So it would take.
If you're going to have the clerk do it, I don't want her in the position you're worried about. Right, I
want to make it easy for you.
I'm good with easy.
I don't want people arguing with you. I want you to be able to say, that's my list right now.
I want to have something that she has, this is the policy.
This is the policy, and here's the list.
Well, so, I was going to say, the policy is one thing, I have that, but it sounds like I also need a list, the flag itself, not just a list of what the recognized months are, but it sounds like I need a list, a picture of the flags is what it sounds like I need. Is that right? If you're saying there's multiple lists.
Well, it depends on what they are. I mean, we can put on the list the New York State flag is one of the flags, yeah. And you don't need a picture of it, you know what flag we're talking
Get rid of the short list.
Yeah, so I think we can give you a short list of pictures or descriptions does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as I can easily tell.
And if so, we can always.
I mean, when you're saying there's multiple flags for one recognition,
Let's not put them on the list till.
We'll pick a flag and we will give you a description in such a way that it's clear what we're talking about.
That's fine. And so for tomorrow, are we going to bypass this form for tomorrow so we can hang this tomorrow, or should we contact someone tomorrow to come fill this out?
We'll say it's pre-approved.
Well, once we pass it, then it's up to the clerk to follow the policy. So tonight, she could actually, if that's on the list, she could approve it once the board approves the policy.
Without the permit filled out?
No, the permit has to be, or whatever has to be filled out. So someone comes in at 7:31 tomorrow and does it, and that flag is on the approved list, then that can be raised according to the protocol and the distance between each one. There's also a distance between each one, and there's also, I think, a maximum number of 4?
I thought it was 3.
I thought it was 3.
It depends on, I put 3 because if you look at the size of our flag versus our flagpole, if you were required to fly the flag at half mast, you'd be flying the bottom one on the ground.
Correct.
And you're not supposed to fly a flag below the half mast point on a halyard or on a pole.
So once again, if that form is filled out, whenever that form is filled out, then our town clerk can follow the policy that we are about to pass.
Right. I don't think this policy says that they have to supply a flag. Do we want to make that part of the policy?
I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Because a lot of well, then they would feel that the town would buy the flag.
If it's not,
That makes no sense.
that's why I'm bringing it up.
No, sir.
They can supply the flag.
Yeah, we're not supplying the flag.
And the flag has to be approved for that.
It has to supply a flag of the necessary quality and of the right size.
Well, on the application thing that I filled out today, name, address, telephone number, month of observance, and then a statement in support of permit application which meets town of Lansing flag display policy standards, which they'll fill that in. And then they just sign it, and then I just put town of Lansing approval signature and date. I didn't put because I wasn't sure if it was going to be at or the board.
And then who is responsible for rising the flag?
I'll get somebody to do that. I'll take care of that.
Yeah, I think the town wants to be in control of who's putting things up and down.
Well, I just meant which employee, Okay.
I'll take care of that.
And then we're giving the flag back to them at the end of the month. That's all fine? That feels comfortable?
Yeah, I'll have a sheet here for what month it's for, and when the month is over with, I'll call them up and...
It gets damaged because of weather. Well, that is the risk one takes.
Okay.
Just making sure. We are not liable, responsible, or viable for any other holes. you want to put down there. All right.
Okay, so we need to adjust this to say that there will be a list on.
Okay.
Well,
Has the wording?
well, I'm trying.
Okay.
I'm listening and I'm multitasking, so I'm sure I got it wrong. So paragraph 6, if you were going to adopt this and I were to do a quick thumbnail sketch of the amendments that have been discussed, and I'll supply them to you in hard copy and copy everyone tomorrow. Be forwarded to town board, and instead of that, it will say, be approved or rejected by the clerk pursuant to this policy. Then the next sentence, instead of the determination clause, it would be the flags shall be required to be generally recognized as, and the end of the sentence would again, the end of that paragraph would get rid of the town board reference again and simply say, once they demonstrate compliance with the policy and on supplying the appropriate flag and verifying compliance with USCA Article 4, the permit shall be approved. And then paragraph 8, I thought was an appropriate place to say something in the nature of, the town board shall maintain a list of approved flags, and the initial approved list shall include the U.S. and New York flags, the president and vice presidential flags, the military flags, the pride, parentheses, rainbow flag, and the POWMIA flag. Those ones I think we could all agree are very commonly understood, and as we come across more that are just blatantly obvious, we can pre-approve them and they wouldn't really have to fill that out. All they have to say is, it's the right size and it's on your approved list. Is that a reasonable starting list, or?
Yeah, I think it's a good template.
So you're saying not to have them fill this out? I mean,
No, they have to fill it out, but they may not have to give a full
okay,
explanation
okay.
if they're an approved flag.
I would say explanation is optional.
You need that because you need to know who to call up and say where to put it.
Exactly, yeah, that's where I was going with it.
I mean, the explanation should be optional.
Well, no, if they have a flag that they're applying for that's not on the list, they have to explain it, and it needs to get a review, and a determination needs to be made whether it's on the list or not.
I mean, I could just write on here, you know,
if not
pre-approved by
Good
policy
point.
or something.
Okay. So if we've all absorbed that, not cross our eyes, are we comfortable with a beginning with this policy?
Guy didn't get the point about they have to supply a flag.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
It was the end of paragraph 4 where I put, demonstrate compliance with this policy and supply the flag verifying compliance with USCA Article 4, the permit shall be approved.
Okay. I didn't hear it.
It was hidden in the fast talk.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that's in there too, because I don't
want to hear from Doug. I was trying to talk fast.
Okay. So the motion, as we discussed, the motion, do we have to read, or do we say as per changes are?
Whoever made the original motion, which was Katrina, do you accept the amendments?
Yes.
Joe, do you second? All good?
Mrs. Munson?
And we'll just write it up like that one.
I'll send it to you as it's being approved.
All right.
Presumably. Don't know yet. Wait to
Katrina
hear.
Pinkowitz?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Okay, next
So
question.
may I ask one question?
You may.
So I need to, or someone is going to get a hold of, someone here is going to get a hold of someone to get me this information? Or
I have a
need
feeling
to
that's going to
investigate?
happen.
Yes.
They're going to be here for a flag raising ceremony in the morning. I think you will see them.
Okay.
And I know, I sort of know them, so.
I'll send Joanne a note.
I think the only thing you need to do is coordinate when that flag raising person is available so they're okay with the time. That's the only thing.
Right, the person.
What time do you want?
Well, that's really done by somebody in the rec department. So
I'll tell them to call you in the morning.
that would be great.
Oh, what time do you get in? Tomorrow.
7:30.
Okay.
Might be a little later tomorrow.
I will have them give you a call and contact you.
Okay,
And
that would be
figure that out. Question, now that we have a flag policy, we've got banners in front of the community center advertising different events. Do we have a policy for when those go up and how those go up?
I think we should have one. That should be a discussion at probably one of our next meetings. But I think I totally agree with you because now you've opened the door for one, not the other. I have no problem with that. The same thing with the banner policy when you put down at the pavilions. Okay, can they be the naming of the rental group, whatever? That's the next step as we evolve. I totally agree. This is something for.
I understand, I just got this as a constituent question of, what about that banner? And I'm like.
When I started this, I actually started it as a flag banner, single signet and sign policy, and I was like, you know what, we're gonna get too far down the side road and not to get this in time for June.
Right.
So I stayed with our flagpole as the only thing covered by this.
Okay.
But we do have to tackle the rest of that.
Yes.
Yeah, this is not the end, this is just the beginning.
Yes, thank
And I'm
you.
very comfortable with that. All right, one more resolution, hiring part-time seasonal employees for park and recreation. Once again, same standard procedure we do every year. Okay, Doug moves it,
I'll second it.
Katrina seconds it. Any discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Doug Dave.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. I know we got a couple more things to do. There's a budget mods. We can go through that first if you want. Does anybody want to make a motion to accept the budget mods?
Hang on, I gotta like switch pages around because we get things out of order.
That makes one change, and next thing you know, I hear it all night.
It means I can't just flip the page.
I got it, okay. So this is
It's on
page
page 22.
22, 23.
The budget bond is page 23.
Yep.
Is that the end of the comprehensive plan expenses?
Yeah, it's gonna probably go under, it'll go under a different category now. It'll go under probably if you have extra meetings, advertising, whatever, it's not gonna go under maps, land is gonna go under the planning board's bill as far as that goes. I would imagine, so is it quote unquote comprehensive end? Okay, it's ended for comp plan, but that's now we move to the next phase.
Yeah, there'll be expenses for the next things we do, I understand, but there's not gonna be no more comprehensive plan expenses. The further expenses will be under some other name.
That's my understanding, unless there's something we missed. I think it's, because it's been, what, almost 2 months? Whatever, I mean, it's.
We're done doing it.
Exactly. No, we move on to the next phase, is what it is. And that's something we always can allocate for next year on budget.
So it'll be a new budget line.
Yep, yep.
And,
Then the 57.6 was the skid steer.
The skid steer, yeah, that's what I thought. Was it 57,000 or was it 55,000?
57.
Okay.
The 55 is the rent we were talking about.
Okay.
500.
Remember, we had all the numbers going out right.
I got a lot of numbers bouncing in my head. I got to sort them out while I'm looking at it.
Good. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to pass the budget modification.
I'll second.
And consolidated.
Yes.
Both, you're doing all of that.
And pay the bill, please.
Just check.
Yes.
Oh, Doug, were you the second on that?
Yes.
You want to pay the bills too, right, Doug?
Yeah.
Okay, Mrs. Munson?
Katrina Binkowitz.
Yes.
Doug Dave.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Before we get into reports, if you want to have reports, if you don't have reports, that's fine too. There's one thing I want to address is we have an emergency meeting coming up on the 27th of June. Jim will not be here. But I think we'll have three. Andre may be here. And we talked about extending the sign date from June 30th up to, it'll be actually July 16th. The end date of July 31st won't change. That'll stay the same, so the money savings will be the same. My question is this, is when you're looking over the sick leave credit, now we've changed that so that you use the whole amount. Or you can use the whole amount. You may not because you may get 65 for them to go towards the insurance. It is not crystal clear, in my opinion, that if you retire but your spouse is still under 65 years old, can that be used for them? It's been implied a little bit here. If one dies, the other one can use it, but it isn't crystal clear. I would move to put that in the offering this time and then permanently change it into our employee handbook so that if I'm 62 and I retire, my wife is 58, once I hit 65, I move into a different category. My sick leave credit doesn't apply to me, but it should still apply to her. Or if I die, she's under 65 years old, can she still use that to get her to 65? It's not really clear in there, and I want to put it in here to buy us some time until we make it crystal clear.
Yep.
I think that's an excellent benefit for the spouse also. So that would be my recommendation, to discuss that at our emergency meeting. I want you to be aware of that now, what we're talking about.
Okay, you're gonna have to do it slower for me to follow you.
I got a week. No, basically what it says is that right now, okay, I work up to 1,320 hours I work but I don't use any sick time. I'm allowed to accrue up to that amount.
Right.
Unless I'm hired after 2015, and this doesn't apply anymore. This gets phased out. So I've got, let's say, 1,320 hours. They calculate what the sick leave credit is by my last hourly wage. That's my quote-unquote pot of money. I'm 62. Okay, I'm going to retire. Here's my health, my health insurance.
Right.
All this dumps into there. Okay, if I'm married and he or she is on my policy, that family plan, that all gets dumped into there. Now, if I die before I'm 62, they're allowed the benefit of it, but it's not clear that they're allowed to use that sick leave credit until they hit 65 and be on that insurance. Well, my point is that, let's say...
How would they use it before they were 65?
Because they're on the family plan with the husband or wife, that's why.
How would they actually use it? Would they use it as sick time or what?
No, they would, well...
Use it to pay interim insurance, right?
Right, it's that insurance that you can do until you hit the Medicare age.
Okay.
Now, granted, once you hit the Medicare age, if both of you do, whatever money's left over, too bad, so sad. Okay, it doesn't get used.
But it's a family benefit. The insurance was family benefit. So even if the provider dies and the spouse isn't at 65 yet, they should have the benefit of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But because when we do this, Doug says I only have 10 minutes. It's an emergency meeting, so when I do this... I'm long-winded right now. I'm running out of fumes here. So having said that, I just want, and we can talk about it later, but I just want to lay the foundation now, okay? All right.
So is that going to be a resolution or something for the 27th to make this happen?
You wouldn't put it in your Leary
No,
local
not that
law.
one, but another one.
You just amend your personnel policy to clarify that it's not clear. It's clear that they're allowed to use the premiums while they're alive to pay whatever the employee's contribution requirement is for their individual family and spousal independence coverage. What's not clear is what happens if they die. The concern is obvious, and that is you've already taken the big hit. Now the town is, because of an ambiguity, going to hit them extra hard because they lost their spouse. Tough
It's
stuff.
like a survival.
So I think it would just be amending the policy to add a sentence and make clear that the surviving spouse and dependents who maintain the policy can use those benefits until each of them also hit 65.
The question is, are we doing that next Wednesday, or are we doing that later?
My hope is to do it next Wednesday.
Okay, so we're going to get some language sent to us soon, right?
Yes.
Cricket's volunteering.
Yes.
No, well, you talk about death, but I think the original question was if the spouse is younger, if the 65, that they would still be covered too.
Yes, if they,
So,
right.
just,
Thank you.
as an elder statesman, I mean, that's kind of the way it's always been. However, it's wrote in the handbook.
No, I understand. I just want to get I want to get this in writing
Well,
so we all know.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Like I
Because
said, it started out as the age difference,
But
and we
you're
got
right.
the people dying. So I just wanted to make
Well,
sure.
the policy seems pretty clear that as long as the employee is alive, that they can use their accrued benefits to pay their employee portion of whatever the premium is due. They won't have anything to pay towards their Medicaid coverage, but if their spouse or an eligible dependent, let's say they have a minor child who's learning impaired or something like that, who's going to be a dependent for his or her whole life, They can stay on until
No,
each of them
it's just sitting
also
over.
term out at 65. What's not clear is what happens if the employee keels over. Does the benefit dissolve even though the family invested, 30, 40, 50 years in the town?
But while we're clarifying.
You can take it away, but boy, that would be the worst time in the world to do it when they're already struggling, so.
So,
it'll be a second resolution on the 27th. That's all I was trying to figure out.
and Guy, in your wonderful creative way, will send it out when he finds time in his busy schedule, so we have plenty of time to look at it. Thank you, Guy, for all you do.
Yeah, that'll be a slow week.
He gets paid for
I know.
Yeah, but you only come to a few meetings a month. Imagine if you did a few every week.
On that happy note, we seem to have made some great progress tonight. Is there anything else you want to discuss?
I just want to report, I went to a TCAT seminar where they were trying to get input from people. And that's what got this meeting down here, was me talking with Matt and saying, let's have a meeting here at the town. So, and one of the things that Mike didn't talk about really is at that meeting, we were finally able to get Village Solar, the town, and TCAT standing in the same room saying, what about this bus stop? And so we stopped that game of, they're saying this, and then, because everybody's in the same room. And so that's where we got, okay, let's go out there. And it sounds like they might even be willing to route their buses through the project, which I think everybody would like to get that bus stop off the major street and somewhere where it's safer. And so that's moving forward really nicely. At the last ITCI committee meeting, I was talking with the county superintendent of highways because we've got that bridge down in Ludlowville that a lot of people are concerned about. And that is going to the state, and they're requesting the state to allow them to produce a narrower bridge because they got the message that a wider bridge is going to be faster traffic through Ludlowville. So it's really up to the state as to whether the state will approve a narrower than normal bridge, narrow as it is now, to slow traffic down, because the residents there were very, very concerned about a wider bridge is going to speed up traffic through Ludlowville, and it's a small area, and it's not like we're going to widen the road through Ludlowville.
Well,
Those cars will be seeing air at the top of the hill.
And one person's lawn is basically gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there you are, you might as well just walk out to the porch and hand them coffee as they go by or something.
Oh, the guardrail goes, basically to their door.
It's called a handrail.
Okay.
Not what's on the side of the road.
Is there anything, is there anything else?
I sent everybody suggestions on the solar law based on the NYSERDA books. I got a couple of copies if anyone wants to take a NYSERDA book home and
Thank you. One question I would have for you is not a criticism, but I find it very helpful if the red line version is next to the, is that possible to do? To put those comments, I can compare back and forth, but we found it extremely handy when there was suggestions. You look at what words were taken out, how it was changed.
I'll see if I can do it. I can see if I can do it. The problem is I don't have Microsoft Word on my computer, so it's hard for me to do red lines that other people can read.
Okay, which is fine. I can print one and compare with the other. It's okay. It's okay. I just, like I said, it wasn't a criticism. It's just like,
I understand what you're saying.
It's like, okay, see what he's trying to do here. Okay, I need to have something to compare it to say what is he recommending? That's all. Okay, anything else?
That's what I got.
Doug?
No. Not in the supervisor report.
Okay. Jim?
Went to the IO meeting. Joe was there too. You went to the big to-do up north?
Yes, I did.
Do you want to speak about that? Is that good? Or confusing?
IO is?
This is the Intermunicipal Watershed Network.
Okay.
And it was just kind of an overview of the whole program. They're starting to put together a program. They've got money to implement planning to try to get all the all the municipalities that surround the lake to have similar policies to try to protect the lake's water quality.
Good.
And they talked about the focus of, failing sewers is definitely one of the problems around our lake. We all know that. How to think about maybe directing some funding towards more evaluation. The new boat is on the water. I don't know if anybody's seen it out there. It's pretty big.
The floating classroom?
Yes. And they're going to have a get-together on the boat and invite us maybe in August sometime.
By the board, good.
And here's an interesting factoid. 25% of the CAFOs that drain into Cuba Lake are in the Salmon Creek watershed. Not just in our town, they go up into the...
Right, yes.
But 25% of them are in that one watershed. So we're kind of a major focal point on that issue.
Well, I think we made some good steps to try to address that.
Yeah.
Guy?
Just something that you'll see on your radar, New York has adopted a charitable gift reserve fund authorization, which has lots of problems, but the guidance and regulations aren't out yet. But it's basically to allow residents, if it works as intended, the IRS hasn't ruled on it yet, to not lose some of their deductions because they'll be able to convert them instead of falling under SALT, they'll now fall under a charitable.
Okay.
And the other thing is that there are, you all remember the workplace violence stuff. Well, New York State now has sexual harassment updates and mandates and training mandates and policy mandates, and there's going to be guidance on that. So whatever policies were originally adopted with all of the laws federally and statewide that occurred in the 70s and 80s, and then workplace violence in the 90s, they're all going to be updated again for the 21st century.
So there's an extra day of training coming.
Yes.
It's a mandate. It's mandated, so
put it on a calendar.
If you want to read about that first, the tax thing, it's in that Association of Towns, the cover story on that.
Yep. Well, yeah, except that's a very simplified version. If you go read the statutes, there's some real questions there about how that's going to work.
Well, it's all dependent on whether the IRS recognizes it.
Well, there's
sort of.
If they say no.
Well,
sort of.
Okay, we'll discuss this as it.
Yeah, I don't think it's ready for discussion, but I'm just getting, start
FYI.
zoning in.
Debbie, do you have anything?
I'm stretching.
Real quick.
Everyone's pretty much done.
The spreadsheet's done to 2023. We'll send that to you. All the numbers you wanted that we discussed. We'll work on this together. The projections.
Yep, that's my next big project.
You can crunch that from there. I will send out when people are available for budget time. I do recommend that you take it upon yourself to meet with the individual department heads, get a feel for where they're going, so you get a sense. It's extremely helpful. Also, it's extremely respectful to them, and they appreciate that. Having said that, Katrina, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, please. We don't have to.
Don't need to.
We just say we're leaving.
Last one out.
One of West and Caroline.